What's up, everybody? We're just jamming out to some electronic music. Hey, what's going on, everybody? We got some people here in the chat. We got, of course, we got Ben. Welcome, Ben. Heck, good to see you in here. We got Danny. We got Gwildor Stormcaller, Tim Carpenter of the Knights of Last Call fame, London, of course, and we even have the Rules Lawyer in here. What's going on, Rules Lawyer? Good to see you in here. Happy to have you. That's awesome. Everybody's really excited about the next round of arena fights. So I know that I'm interested to see what you do with that next. Let's see. What OBS do I use? I just use straight OBS. I don't use Streamlabs or anything like that. Just OBS. And I have some alerts through Stream Elements, which is a free service. And that's what does all of my tip alerts and all that other stuff. And yeah, I mean, other than that, it's just basic OBS stuff. And of course, the graphical overlay, which the Night Nation is imploring me to change. They want me to go back. They want me to make my own one. But, you know, that's a lot of work. All right. A little too hard for what we got going on today. Alrighty, what do we got going on here? Is this a skin? Sort of. It's a package called Arcane. I got it from nerdordie.com. You can do your overlay in Stream Elements, but I just kind of built my overlay myself. I just downloaded these little images and the sort of moving images from nerdordie.com. I had bought it years ago, like at the beginning of the pandemic, because I thought I was going to stream Magic the Gathering, and never ended up happening. I never used it. And so when I decided to jump into this live stream, I just said, well, hell, I already have all this stream overlay stuff. I'll just use that. And here we are. Although, like I said, I either may pay someone to custom build one for the Knights, or if I'm feeling really, really bored, I could always just try to build one myself. But usually I have to use After Effects to build that stuff, so it just takes a lot longer than you normally would. What's going on? Let's see. We got a couple other people join here. Yes, Walker. Welcome, Walker. A new patron. Walker joined after our last live stream, so welcome, Walker. Glad to see you. Zandy's here. Eon Rider. That's a new name. I don't know if I've seen you before, so good to see you. Yeah. Well, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. So for everybody here, of course, Swing Ripper was here from our last one as well, because he came in after our live stream as well. Hey, listen. Whether you're a knight or a hero or a champion, it's all super appreciated, and we really, 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 it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so Damien, I'm gonna make you a mod. So hold on one second, sir. Just so you can help out. We always get these weird Russian...
tip $25. That haircut isn't what your patrons asked for. We're all disappointed.
Well, thank you. That was very nice of you.
Rocks fall, you die tipped $2. Looking forward to the new tier list.
Well, awesome. I am looking forward to the new tier list as well. Speaking of which... here we go. We got a cult. So, Flame Loud, we just started. So we just got into this. So what I was going to say, for people who maybe have missed us, we've done 4 of these live streams. Originally, this was going to be an actual recorded series. We were going to call it Spells and Magic. And we may still do a series called Spells and Magic as sort of an analog to the combat and tactics model, right? To focus more on magical items, using spells in a sort of Pathfinder creative tactical way, and getting more bang for your buck out of your spells. But this just sort of became the first thing that we wanted to do on live stream. Everybody loves a tier list, and so here we are. And yeah, Aaron, we are doing the occult list today. So you're in luck. But there's a couple of caveats here. GM Scott, you were going to call it S&M? Yeah, I guess we were. I didn't really think about that. But we've done 4 of these live streams so far. The first 3 were just dedicated to the Arcane spell list, level 1. And I think there's like 88 spells in the Arcane level 1, and it just took us a long time. It took us 3 sessions to make it all the way through that. But then Primal, our 4th session, only took us 1 because so many of the Primal spells were also Arcane spells. So we had already rated them. So we kind of did a review of what the tier list looked like from our previous gradings, see if there was any adjustments that had to be made. There were a couple that had to be made. And then we proceeded with the new Primal spells. Well, now, today, we have the Occult spells. And believe it or not, most of the Occult spells we have already graded. So there's only a handful of new ones. And if you take a look on your screen, right here at the top, we only have about, looks like about 10, maybe, new Occult spells to grade. So there's really not a whole lot here that wasn't already included in Arcane and Primal. And just kind of an interesting note, and this makes sense, right? We talked about this before on the stream, but the way that they do this for the 4 traditions in Pathfinder 2 is they talk about mind and matter, spirit, and somebody help me out. Spirit and soul, I think, or something like that. And so the Arcane spell list sort of represents mind and matter, and the Occult spell list represents mind and soul, or spirit, mind and spirit. Thank you, Life. Thank you, Swing Ripper. Okay, I couldn't get it. All right, so mind and matter are your Arcane spell list. Well, the Primal spell list is matter and spirit, or matter and life. So that means that the Occult spell list is almost completely opposite from it. GM Scott, just saying hi. Well, welcome, GM Scott. We appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here. It's awesome to see you. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, I was worried my alerts weren't working really quick. Just getting them out then quick. So, hi, GM Scott. Awesome. Thank you for the super chat. It is very, very appreciated. And yeah, hey, listen, if anybody wants to throw some money our way, it is very appreciative. Super chats are awesome. We also have a link down below in the description to our Stream Elements tips page. That's just a direct way to tip us. It doesn't go through YouTube. It goes straight to us. We get a little bit, more percentage of that. YouTube takes a cut, of course, out of everything that we do here. And that tip page is a way to sort of bypass it. But I have to admit, the super chats do look fancy. So either way, it's all appreciated, and we really, 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 really love it. Yeah, the soul, spirit, life thing. Just life means think like healing, and spirit means think weird, powers from the beyond. At the end of the day, the point is the Primal spell list and the Occult spell list have very little overlap, whereas the Occult spell list has a lot of these Arcane spells. So we can kind of dive in here. Now, normally these take us about 2 hours. We're kind of scheduled from 7 to 9. That's how long I like to go. And we get through about 15 spells an hour, and that's with all the BSing that I do. But we only have like 10 spells. So what we're probably going to look to do in this stream is wrap up the Occult and then try to take on the rest of the Divine spells. So, Self-Confessed Cynic, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. He's asking for the call out. Can the chat call out go under the chat? Maybe? I don't know. Let's see. He's asking. He's paying, so, we have to do that, right? All right. I'm still working on trying to figure out how to get that to be a bigger box. So We'll go with that for right now. So anyways, there we go. But we have our initial list. So I've taken out everything that was primal. I've taken out everything that was arcane, everything that we've done so far. And what we have left is basically the occult spell list. I should also note the arcane spell list is by far the largest spell list. The primal is the second largest, and the occult is smaller yet still. So there's really not that many spells in the occult spell list. And so really there's not a whole lot here for us to really kind of look at. But if we take a look, let me check up with this chat real quick, actually, before we dig into this. Yeah, we're recapping the arcane spells. Exactly, Kevin. Yeah, we're going to go do that. All right. Sage says the Divine's going to be like 15 minutes long. That sounds about correct. That may actually end up being about how long it takes. All right, so let's take a look what we have here in our wonderful world of the occult. So let's start with our 3 S tiers, ones that we already have. So we had fear. I think fear might be in every list, so that's a good call. But we get back True Strike and we get back Magic Missile. So those are 2 really powerful spells that we had from the arcane spell list, and they are back. And honestly, I'm really surprised that occult gets Magic Missile. True Strike makes sense because it's a divination. You're sort of seeing into the future. But Magic Missile just doesn't really feel like an occult thing. I guess because of its force nature and the fact that it can deal with spiritual and sort of incorporeal creatures. But I do want to take this moment to kind of bitch a little bit. So no surprise here. I am known for having some opinions about this game. And they're not, listen, I'm not a die-hard Pathfinder 2 person. There's some things about the game that I don't like. So I'm not afraid to admit it. It's not like people are like, oh, Derek, you hate 5th edition. No, I don't hate 5th edition. And I'm not a Pathfinder 2 super fanboy either. There are things about this that aren't good. And so one of them is that we talked about this last time, but in the effort to streamline the spell list, and instead of having to create a unique spell list for each and every class as they come out, they decided to bucket everything into these 4 traditions. And so far, it has felt pretty good. Arcane obviously fits very well, whether you're a wizard or a sorcerer or a magus or a witch. It fits anywhere. But you get to primal, and you're like, okay, when we think primal, your go-to instinct is druid. But of course, in Pathfinder 2, there are other classes that use the primal spell list. Sorcerers can use them, for example. In fact, if you have an elemental bloodline, self-confessed cynic, no Eldritch Blast, F tier spell list. Yeah, go figure. You come from 5th edition, you're like, okay, just what is the class that gets Eldritch Blast? And you're like, there is no class that gets Eldritch Blast. Actually, I'm DMing a 5th edition game right now, and we do have a Warlock. They do have Eldritch Blast, and they just took some invocations. They just got to level 3, so he just pumped it up and made it even more powerful. Now he gets to add his charisma modifier to the damage, which is already insane. So it is a very, very, very powerful cantrip. Go figure. So we got to the primal class that looks cool. You got all this elemental energy, gust of wind, fireball, all these cool spells. But then you also have these animal, plant type spells, which you would expect to see on a druid. But the fact that you're like an elemental sorcerer who is in communion with one of like the elemental fire lords or one of the wind lords, the fact that you get like summon plant doesn't really quite make sense. And it really comes to a head on the occult spell list, because the 2 main classes that you think of when you think of occult, you think of the weird, creepy, Cthulhian, Lovecraftian sort of tentacle horror beyond sight, beyond mind, beyond realms man was not meant to know, far realm stuff. And the list is chock full of this stuff. But it's also, so, that's your sorcerer, that's your witch. But it's also the spell list of the bard. And none of that stuff seems appropriate for the bard. And then there's also on the list spells that are very clearly bard spells. Like your occult sorcerer who wields the power of the dark energy of the cosmos, gets a spell to like summon musical instruments. It's like, it doesn't quite make any sense. And when you read the spell list, it really does feel like it should have just been 2 traditions. I don't know why there wasn't a song tradition or something like that. And then sort of like the weird Lovecraftian occult stuff. Why weren't they 2 traditions? I don't get it. And I think part of the reason is they wanted to fit into their sort of arbitrary symmetry of the 4 traditions, and putting a 5th tradition would have just been wonky. But then they ended up putting a 5th tradition in Secrets of Magic anyways with Elemental. So what the hell's the deal? Walker says, occult is very much just everything else. And that is exactly right. Anything that doesn't fit somewhere, they put it in here. I'm okay with bards manipulating, mind and spirit. I think that's pretty cool. But, a bard casting, grim tendrils doesn't really make sense. Yeah, my witch's go-to being blistering invictive. Yeah, not exactly what you think of, when you think of, it's a little strange, right? It's a little strange. All right, well, let's get into where we have for our tier list. So, Zandy points out correctly that summon instrument is on the divine list as well. Okay, fair enough. I mean, that I'm okay with that too. Divine music, it's a thing. All right, what do we got here? So we got Magic Missile, Fear, and True Strike, all really solid, great spells. If the bard was even remotely capable of melee combat, that would be pretty cool, but they're not really. So we see right here off the bat, it's a little scary because we have lost like every A tier spell. So we are down to just Magic Weapon. That's all that's left. We only have a couple of spells up here, and they better be good ones, or the occult spell list is really in trouble. So see, all I have to do is create really horrible garish colors, and then Self-Confessed Cynic, who is a patron, a hero, thank you, Self-Confessed Cynic, also known as Vin, will complain to me incessantly about the colors. Then I change them, and then he tips me money. So it's a pretty good deal. The thing is, Quag, is I feel like the bard should be lean more into the musicality element, and I think their magic should feel fundamentally different. I just feel like that is the case. It's always been the case. And, Ryan, you say this, but the bard can cast all of their spells. Their alternative focus is a music instrument. So it's very much still part of the bard. The bard is a weird class no matter how you look at it. It was weird back in first edition. It was okay in third edition, but it had its own spell list that actually felt pretty reasonable. They had a cool spot in the game, but now they are just they're just outmoded. I don't know. They just feel really unnecessary anymore. So, not that I'm not a fan of them, but the other thing too is there's just so many people who play a bard just to be kind of annoying, and I don't like that. No one in my groups has ever really done that, but I see this as a big trend, and I see a lot of Reddit cringe posts that basically talk about some cringy bard trying to basically be Scanlan from Critical Role, and Rules Lawyer. I agree that the bard's composition spells are probably the coolest part of the class. So I do like that a lot. It feels weird to me when you're like casting musical instruments and you're using your compositions and you're like allegro, forte, melodic, thriving, and then you're suddenly like bleed from your eyes. Although Bard is definitely weird with the Occult tier list, they are excellent because of their cantrip, maybe A tier. Yeah, well, we'll see. We haven't done a class tier list yet, have we? So, oh my God, Walker, there are a lot of focus spells in the game. So I definitely, you know, yeah, Reddit can be the vocal outliers. That's true. So diving back into the list, you can see that, unfortunately, a lot of the arcane spells that we did get, again, we didn't really pick up too many primal spells because, again, they're sort of like in different quadrants. Like if arcane is here, then occult is here, and primal is sort of, you know, over here. So this is primal, and this is occult. They're sort of opposite one another. We don't really get a whole lot of overlap. So most of the spells on this list are from our arcane list. So we got our Magic Missile, we got our Fear, we got our True Strike. And as a reminder, Primal had 3 S-tier spells. Arcane had 4 S-tier spells. And... Sorry about that. And we'll see what Divine has. So, yeah. So Arcane had... There we go. That's Arcane's list. So you can see a lot of spells. But it had the same as Occult, plus it had, you know what it had. Horizon Thunder Sphere! It had the big one. It had the bad one. And the big bad Horizon Thunder Sphere. So, anyways, here we go. We get Charm, we get a lot of the Illusion spells, we get a lot of the Mind Control spells. So we get the Charm, we get the Command, we get the Agitate, and we just get a lot of the weird Illusion-type spells, the weird Nudge the Odds and Deja Vu. It has all the really, really strange spells that just don't do a whole lot, the ones that pretty much went straight down to F or D when we did our Arcane list. They really don't have a great list off the bat. So let's get it. I mean, again, Magic Missile, Fear, True Strike is good. So that's a good place to start. And if we can get even one S tier, at least it's one more S tier than Primal. But if you remember, Primal had a very balanced list, a lot of A's, a lot of B's, fewer C's and D's and F's. So it was kind of more, you know, crunched up. Whereas Arcane had a definite bell curve, a lot of high end, a lot of low end. Right now, our Occult list is looking like a lot of low end. So we're going to start off with Bane. Bane is a spell that's been around for a long time. It was certainly in 3rd edition, Pathfinder 1. And I think there was a Bane in 2nd edition. I think it was the reversed version of Bless. So so here's we go. We have our Bane spell. I gotta bring my window up so I can scroll. All right. Well, this is our first spell that we haven't seen. Now, okay, so Bane has the same problem as Bless does. All right, you know what? I'm going to start with Bless, actually. I want to talk about Bless. I want to talk about Bless because it's a spell that I like and I've house ruled. So I'm going to start with Bless. Okay? Sorry for the confusion. Because I think you're going to cast Bless a lot more often than you're going to cast Bane, and this sort of sets the baseline, you know? Okay, real quick, here we go. It's a 2-action spell. It's a 5-foot emanation. It lasts for 1 minute. So right off the bat, you're like, okay, it's a buff. It's a duration. Short emanation, though, right? What does it give you? +1 status bonus to attack rolls only. Okay, so that means it's not really helping your spellcasters unless they're casting spell attacks roll spells. And it's only going to be helping people who are making attack rolls. That goes without saying. Now, obviously, that means that you need to be next to them. Luckily, once per turn, starting the turn after you cast Bless, you can use one action, which has a concentrate trait, and it increases the radius by 5 feet. So, as a spell, this +1. Okay, we've talked about this before. There are 3 bonus types in the game. There's status bonus, item bonus, circumstance bonus. Circumstance bonuses almost always come from actions or feats, things that you have to sort of do. They're more martially oriented. They're more positionally oriented. It's sort of a more realistic type thing. Item bonus, that comes from your items, right? And the way you're going to get an item bonus to attack is through your potency runes on your weapons. So status bonus is the magic bonus. The go-to spell, which we'll get to later on, is Heroism. It's a long duration buff, single target, targets one person, gives them a +1 status bonus to pretty much every D20 roll they make. Yes, yes, yes. Derek said trag. Traits and tags. Okay, in Dungeon World and Apocalypse World, they're called tags, and I've been calling them tags for like 10 years. And then Pathfinder 2 came in and called them traits, and that's the same thing, and it's hard to call them, of course. But of course, if you really want to see someone make fun of me for that, why don't you check out Deadly D8? He did a collab with a Knights of Last Call, and he did an animation version of our 3-action economy video, and he makes fun of me a lot for saying trag. Okay, so Bless. So Bless, it's an AoE +1 status bonus to attack rolls. So for the early part of the game, this is probably one of the best ways to get status bonuses. It lasts for essentially the whole fight. Depending on your circumstance, your GM might even allow you to cast this before a fight. But I feel like this spell is needlessly fiddly. I don't want to track this 5-foot emanation. I don't want to track it increasing. And I certainly do not want to have a cleric have to spend 3 or 4 additional actions just to make this spell useful. So, what have I done? Well, in my last campaign before Rise of the Runelords, which was Abomination Vaults, we had a cleric, a cloistered cleric, and they had Bless early on. And the way I changed Bless was, because I like these types of spells, the way I house ruled it was I made it a 1-action spell, a 2-action spell, or a 3-action spell. As a 1-action spell, it does exactly what it says here. It creates a 5-foot radius emanation. This is perfect for the War Priest. The War Priest can stride in a melee, use 1 action to cast Bless, and then attack and buff possibly the rogue or the fighter or the barbarian who's also close up in melee with them, and then can continue to spend actions as they wish to increase the radius. For 2 actions, I would let Bless be a 20-foot emanation. And if the cleric wanted to spend 3 actions, I would make it a 40 or 50-foot emanation, essentially the entire battlefield. If a cleric wants to take their entire turn off in order to just give carte blanche to the entire battlefield with +1 status bonus to attack, I'm okay with that. So that is why I changed Bless, which means inherently I thought this spell was underpowered. I feel like it's a pain in the ass to cast. I feel like if you're a cloistered cleric and you cast this spell, it's probably not helping anybody the turn you cast it. Maybe one person that's an archer, or you have to move into the first, really close to the front lines, and that is not where you want to be. So it's not that great. That being said, I think a AoE +1 status bonus is actually bigger than maybe most people are giving credit for, and I think that's something that you should definitely take into consideration a little bit, because it does add up, and it's everybody getting that bonus. So what does that mean? Well, I've been going on for a long time. Let me see what everybody else is saying here. I think we're talking about Bane a little bit. So we'll talk about Bane about that. Yeah, Bless is nice. You don't have to sustain or anything like that. But yeah. So rules lawyer, you say you don't have to be the front line. You can stay back with the casters and the archers and stuff like that. Absolutely, that is 100% true. And hey, you know what? Cast 1 spell. I just think that for what amounts to be a very small bonus, it doesn't feel. This isn't like a really cool spell to cast. It's a very utilitarian spell, and so I personally like the idea that a cleric could cast a 1-action Bless and then do something else with their turn, or cast a really big Bless and just cover everybody with the AoE for the rest of the game. And also, too, again, I don't want to deal with this 1 action. Like, why should they have to put 3 or 4 actions into this spell, or 5 actions into the spell? It's not that good. And Walker says C tier for me. The combats are too short. I agree. By the time you get this thing up, it's probably at the end of the fight. Ben says PF lets casters be in the rear. Yeah, very short range on a lot of spells, 30 feet for most. So being in the rear has a lot of different messages. So for all those reasons, I like the effect. And the way I wrote the spell, I think it would probably be like a B tier. But because of the limitation of it being a 5-foot emanation, and the fact that you can't even expand it the turn you cast it, I'm going to put it down into the C tier. And it also goes without saying that eventually this spell does get surpassed by heroism, which at lasting 10 minutes could potentially last you for a fight or two, depending if whether or not you rest. And certainly higher levels of heroism, which heighten, override this effect entirely. Swing Ripper says he thinks my version is a B. Yeah, I think mine would be like a B or an A. He finds C generous, but he's okay with that. Neural Lancer, good point. Bards can do this just as easily with Inspire Courage. And hell, this is we're rating the occult spell list here. So yeah, I think C is generous. Yeah, but Flame Loud, I get it. Yes, that is true. But then you're not moving, and a whole part of this game is moving and you know, being dynamic, and just standing around and just casting a spell and increasing the radius on Bless is not a fun way, I think, to spend your turn. I think the reason, in my opinion, most spells are 2 actions is so that it makes the caster have to move and cast a spell. And if they want to do something else, then they have to, you know, either cast a weaker spell or not cast a spell. So that's a good point, too. Inspire Courage is just better. C for non-bard, F for bard. Yeah, that's probably actually really fair. I will buy that. All right, so now that we've dealt with Bless, we can go deal with Bane. I was nobody before I put on the mask. It would be painful. Yeah, Aaron, I agree. It forces you to just basically stack up and, you know, I mean, again, that could be fun in its own way, but no, Chef. Basically, it just means that on the turn, there is no sustain on Bless. It just stays active. But if you decide that you want to increase the radius, that action, that single action, has a concentration trait, which means things that might be affected by, you know, your concentration being disrupted, or things that if you can't concentrate because of some sort of magical effect, means you couldn't take that magical effect. All right, here we go. We got the opposite of Bless. It's Bane. It's the same exact thing, but in reverse. Enemies in the area have to make a will save. So remember, at least, okay, one thing to always take into account, especially as we get into the divine and the occult spell list, which have more of these kind of buffs / debuffs. At least a buff always works, right? You're never going to cast Bless and you're going to find that, like, oh, 4 of my party members saved and it did nothing. Bane, or any spell like it, I mean, theoretically, you could cast the spell and it might not affect everybody. It might only affect a couple of people. So that tends to mean that if 2 spells are very similar, you're usually better off casting the buff, but that doesn't always be the case. So enemies in the area have to make a will save or take a -1 status penalty. Keep in mind, that's a 5-foot emanation the turn you cast it. Not great. And then, of course, once per turn, you can increase the emanation to 5 feet, and et cetera, et cetera. Only if enemies weren't yet affected to attempt another saving throw. So that means when you cast a spell, you might only have 1 or 2 people, possibly. That's saying something. That means you're very close, that are going to be inside the radius. Then, if you increase the radius once per turn, it increases it by 5 feet and forces enemies that were in the area that weren't yet affected to attempt another saving throw. This even kind of implies, and I don't know if you guys said this in the chat, but it implies that even if I were to move my Bane radius, let's say out from a 5-foot emanation to a 10-foot emanation, and then I were to, like, make a stride action and run between all of the enemies, I don't think that would actually trigger them to make a will saving throw. It seems like they only have to make a new will saving throw if they weren't already affected and during that actual increase when you spend the action to pump it up. Now, that's probably irrelevant because the spell just really isn't that great. It's probably better on a, I don't even know, a melee focused character. So now, Rules Lawyer, you say you can force a new save every turn. Yeah, so you can spend the action and try to pump it. You can spend the action and try to pump it. You can spend the action and try to pump it. I mean, that's okay. I think the problem with Bane, though, is, you're paying it some component for this for its, area of effectiveness. And when you're facing off against one creature, that's actually the place where I probably wouldn't want to cast a Bane spell, because I feel like I'm paying for this area of effect that isn't really getting utilized for anything. So I don't like Bane, and I'm going to put it into the D tier. And again, say for what it was, we had a Cleric, and they never actually really cast Bane, so for a long time. Chef, that's a really great point. Chef says, would you use the same Bless House rule for Bane? Yes, I would. And I think that would actually make it probably like a C tier. Swing Ripper said, I'd rather just use Fear. I agree. If you're in a single target situation, I think you would rather just cast Fear. I mean, obviously, if they fail the will save, then they're locked into that -1 status penalty to attack. But Frightened is to everything. DCs, checks, attack rolls, armor classes, and stuff. So, any case. Doesn't stack with Fear, Frightened. D is generous. It's not an F because it does do something. And the best case scenario for Bane, and of course Pathfinder 2 kind of rules makes this kind of irrelevant, is that if you were fighting, say, 8 or 10 or 12, party level -3 or -4 monsters, so you have some severe fight against a bunch of lower level monsters, and you cast Bane, and they are much more likely to fail your save, and with that -1 affecting on them, that is that much more penalizing and punishing to them, because they already have such a slim margin to hit you, right? They may need, let's just make this number up, they may need a 15 or higher to hit you. So that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? That's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's 6 numbers. So if you cast Bane on them, now they can only hit you on 5 numbers, right? You have increased, or just should say, you've decreased their chance of hitting by 1/6, which is a very significant margin. Whereas if they needed a 10 to hit you and you cast Bane on them, now they need an 11 to hit you. Well, now you've only decreased their margin by 1/11. So percentage-wise, against hordes of lower-level foes, this is a much better spell. But in my experience, reading through Adventure Paths, which is what a lot of people, dare I say, most people are playing these days, you don't find a lot of those encounters. They don't put them in there because they take up a lot of page count. They're difficult to run. They're hard for the GM to run. And I just find that those sort of en masse encounters don't really get, used up. And Pierre, you said they would be better if combat took a lot longer. And if you were fighting 10 or 12 lower level monsters, I think the combat would take a lot longer. So, because the thing is, it's like, yeah, they're lower level, but there are no minion rules or mook rules like in Feng Shui or 4th edition D&D. A lower level monster may be lower level, but it still has the same abilities and has the same 3 actions and has all the same stuff as any other monster. So it could be really, really, challenging to run a big fight like that. So, maybe something we'll talk about in the future, but yeah. So melee caster, yes, it's okay. And again, and then swarm of enemies that are all low. Yeah, and I think that second one is probably the best case scenario for this spell. Because you're going to get a better percentage increase by casting Bane in that scenario than you would casting Bless. Because again, when you cast Bless, you are already favored to hit. So you might be hitting on 15 numbers, and casting Bless makes you hit on 16 numbers. That's only a 1/16 in terms of percentage increase in your chance to hit. Whereas if they're hitting on 5 numbers, you cast Bane, and now they're hitting on 4 numbers. That's basically a 20% decrease in their overall chance to hit. So that's pretty sizable. I mean, a +1 is a +1, is a -1 is a -1, but there is something to be said about the percentages as well. All right. So there we go. Next one. Biting words. To be honest with you, I don't know if I know this one. All right, biting words. It's got every trag in the game. It's got attack. Uh-oh. Mind your map penalty. Auditory evocation. Oh, we got some other stuff here. I want to address this really quick here. But then the crit chance also goes up by 5%. That is very true. Yes. If you are hitting a monster on a 10 or better, once you get to that magic number where you can hit a monster on a 10 or better, each +1 that you get to hit is worth so much more than it was before. So if you hit a monster, let's say on 12 or better, and then you get a +1 to hit. So now you hit the monster on an 11 or better. That is, a somewhat of an increase in your chance to hit, but your chance of critical hitting remains the same, 5%. You need to get a 20, a nat 20. But if you need a 10 or higher to hit, and you get a +1, and now you need a 9 or higher to hit, now you critical hit on a 19 or 20. You have a 10% chance of critical hitting. You just doubled your critical hit chance. So there is an inflection point in Pathfinder 2 where past a certain point, debuffing a monster or buffing a party member becomes more or less valuable depending on that inflection point. It's the same thing with like a boss. Giving a boss a penalty to hit is a good thing, obviously. But what you really want to be doing is giving them a penalty to hit. And then once they're at the point where they, if they were hitting you like on a 7, well, that means they were critting you on a 17, 18, 19, or 20. Well, once you can give them, let's say, a -4 penalty to their attack roll somehow by some ungodly combination of debuffs, and now you've got it to the point where that boss monster is hitting you on a 10, which means he only crits you on a 20 now. Now, each time you give him a debuff, it's worth a little less because you're not actually affecting his crit chance now. Now you're only affecting his regular damage chance. So if you look at the actual calculations of damage per round or expected damage per strike, you'll see how there's this weird inflection point. It's not linear the way that you think it might be. Anyways, okay, biting words, sorry. It's an attack, it's got auditory, it's got evocation, it's got linguistic, it's got sonic. So remember, it only works if they speak your language. So that's a knock on it, right? So it basically does not work against anything that is unintelligent. It doesn't work against anything that doesn't speak your language. It doesn't work against anything that doesn't have a language, even if it is intelligent. So that could be a problem. They got to be able to hear. Not that comes up that often, but it is something to take into consideration. It lasts for 1 minute. All right, you're giving them taunts and jibes with magic in your voice. And this is very, when H.P. Lovecraft, when he was writing his books and he talked about, that which is dead, he was thinking about magical words on his voice. But anyways, once you cast it, you can attack with your words and can repeat the attack once on each of your subsequent turns by taking a single action, which has all the same traits. And if you do it 3 times, the spell ends. It's a ranged spell attack within 30 feet, dealing 2d6 sonic damage. So you jump through all these hoops, and you get a pretty okay attack. It's a 2d6 sonic damage. It scales. Now, 2d6 sonic damage, average of 7. Remember, spell attacks don't scale as well, but you're only doing it for 1. This isn't actually that bad. If this spell didn't have the linguistic trait, this spell would actually be very good. But, and it does sonic damage, which is a cool damage type. But, well, Horizon Thunder Sphere is 2d8. But, you know, you only get one cast on it. So I would think that this spell actually would probably be like a solid, you know, B. I will say that the range on it, well, no, the range is 30 feet. So, yeah, infinite range isn't bad. No, it's 30 feet range. You got to, it says here, right? Got to be that. But it scales okay. I mean, of course, spell attack rolls don't scale as well. Yeah, so the first turn, you use 2 actions and you get to attack with it. And then turn 2, you can attack with it. And again, you can only make that attack once on each of your subsequent turns. So you'd cast this on turn 1 for 2 actions. You make a spell attack, 2d6 damage. On turn 2, you spend 1 action and you make an attack, basically probably doing a little bit more damage than the average bow, right? A bow does d8. You know, maybe they have propulsive, maybe they don't. But like a bow is going to be doing like 4 to 5. They're really lucky, 6 damage. This is going to be doing an average of 7 with a higher ceiling and a lower floor. So it's better than just your standard bow shot. Yeah, Pierre got it right. I mean, everybody has said this, but the linguistic trait's the real kicker, right? Like if you're going up against creatures and you have a lot of languages known, the spell's actually going to be really great. But otherwise, it's literally useless. It's useless. It won't even work. It's not like it does less damage. Lance Quagmire says, reminds me of Pathfinder 1 Produce Flame. I agree, and I like that spell. I think without the restriction, this would be an S tier spell. And with the restriction, I am going to have to put it into the B tier. I just don't see... I can just see this spell being coming up a lot of times. It really depends on your campaign, but I could see this spell coming up a lot where you're not going to be able to even use it. Worse, you know, depending on your GM, like you may not know what language do they speak, and then you just have to try it, and then you know, shout something in a language, and your GM says, no, they don't speak any languages that you know, or try a language. Anyways. Yeah, Aaron Luke said, this depends on your campaign. I'm glad to see that you are using the Trag language. That is the correct language to use. Yeah, so cool spell. Very flavorful for a bard. I love it for a bard. It's a Secrets of Magic spell, so we've been clearly, you know, enjoying some of those spells. Yeah, Gwildor, this is very clearly a bard spell, and I completely agree with that. Probably not very good on a prepared caster compared to a spontaneous. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Having this as a signature spell would be pretty good. That's pretty decent damage scaling. So yeah, not aimed at an occult sorcerer at all. So we'll go with B, Biting Words, because the damage potential is there, and if you can make it work, you know, you're going to be doing A tier, S tier. Just getting 3 attacks with this thing is for 4 actions is pretty good. And it's flexible. That's the key. It's not like it's 1, 2, 3. Man, maybe it's A. Because, like, it lasts for a minute. So, like, even if I use the 2 actions this turn, next turn, maybe I'm like, oh, I don't have the action this turn. Or there's not a good situation for me to use it in. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to move this up to A. I think you're going to find at least once or twice, one or 2 encounters a day where you're really going to be able to just pop this thing off and be really happy with the performance on it. And that lasting for a minute, having that flexibility, you know, Horizon Thunder Sphere is very, very, very cool, but it really locks you in, you know, if you're going to go for that 2-round version. Here, you could, you know, Yeah. Who said it? Yeah, exactly, Flame. Like, you cast it this turn, and you cast it, and you do some damage, and the next turn, the setup isn't there. You don't have the setup. So you hold off, you wait. Then round 3, the foe is prone, or they're grappled, so they're flat-footed. And then an ally gives you the aid action, and now suddenly your circumstance bonus is up to increase to hit, and now you're landing it and hitting that crit. I think that's way better. So it's really good. Okay. All right, Swing. We'll go with A. Yeah. I see a lot of agreement here for this. So Enrique says A for him as well. So I'm gonna agree with Enrique. Right, exactly, Enrique. It's not sustained, so you can't even. You're not priced into using that if it was sustained and you had to use the action, and when you sustained it, you made the attack roll, like that would be very, very different. But it's not, and that's what makes it actually really good. Yeah. Tofat, I agree. That's a good point. Good powerful combos, I think it's good. Yeah. All right. A, not S. Linguistic does hold it back, but I think you'll have to find it back. So I'm surprised. This is actually a really cool spell, and of course just came out in Secrets of Magic, and haven't had a chance to dig through everything in that book yet. So cool. Good to hear, Brant. Yeah, and it is a good reason for bards to know a bunch of languages. Shouldn't they know a bunch of languages anyways? All right, what do we got next? We got Concordant Choir. I don't like this song. All right, sorry. All right. Boop, boop. All right, Concordant Choir. Another Secrets of Magic spell. Ooh, it's a 1, 2, 3 spell. Yes, Damien. Secrets of Magic has pulled ahead, for sure, over Gods and Magic. Yes, that's a really good combo. A lot of utility in that round, Swing Ripper. And Inspire Courage, do that, and yeah, very good, very good. Wow, that would be a good turn. You turn 2, you've got Biting Words on, and you do an Inspire and Courage, you hit him with a Demoralize, and then you hit him with the attack. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, well, it's Divine and Occult, so that's something. 1, 2, or 3, range 30 feet. So this is the Bardic version of Horizon Thundersphere. It's fort save. It's it's a 30-foot range. 1d4 Sonic. That's not good. 2 actions is 2d4 Sonic. Oh, it's 1 action though, verbal only. Oh, okay. I'm reading this a little wrong. I'm thinking of this differently. Okay. Well, 1d4 is not great, but it's only 1 action, so that's fine. 2 actions is what we should be looking at here, really. 2d4 Sonic damage, 10-foot burst, basic fort save. That's pretty good. It's still 30-foot range, but that's pretty good. And then 3 actions is everybody, 30-foot emanation. Huge area for a level 1 spell. Huge area. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't scale 2d4 per level. That kind of... Oh, no, okay. It scales 2d4 for the other levels. Here's the thing. It's hitting fort save. That's cool. AoEs hitting fort saves, we've said before, is a good thing to have. Gives you a lot of versatility. Yeah, Bard's getting something that doesn't rely on hitting the will save. Very good. Oh, you don't speak my language? I think you're going to speak, boom, this. So this is a very useful spell. Now, remember, we are grading these spells in the context of the tradition that they are in. If you're casting arcane spells, you've got a million things that do something like this, right? So this isn't as impressive. But if you are in the occult school and tradition, you might need to think twice about this because it does do some damage. It's not what you're good at doing. You know, the divine and the occult casters, they're really not there to do big blastery things. But it is an AoE spell with a 1, 2, and 3 action version. And that is something that we should consider. So my baseline assumption is that this spell is... that's a good point too, Damien. It's a Sonic. I like that too. So Rules Lawyer points out that Soundburst, which is a really good spell. Our Cleric casts Soundburst a lot in our Abomination Vaults game. Does 2d10, 10-foot radius, fort save, and it stuns one on a crit failure. Doesn't have the flexibility that this one does, but it is something to be considered. Consider it too. So my initial thought on this spell was C tier. I think that it isn't fantastic because, right, you're doing 2d4 damage, but that's not really what your class is really that good at doing anyways. And, you're penalizing for that. This is a divine occult spell, so it's only a couple of damage. And it's not going to scale as well. It does give you... Now, look, I'm not saying you shouldn't take it. That's why it's a C-tier spell. But I think there are better options for you to take. If someone really wanted to push and tip and say it should be a B-tier, I would agree with you. But for the most part, I think I'm happy with the C-tier. All right, next. Detect Alignment. It's an interesting spell. I think we can all agree that this goes into the wand or the scroll case. Okay, I got a quick question for you. Oh, okay. Never mind. Damien, that's a good point. This list has Magic Missile. Yeah. All right, C tier. C tier. So someone asked if Grim Tembles might be bumped up as well. No, I think it's fine. I mean, in that regard, it's kind of the same as the. I think it's pretty close to what of this. So Aaron, so obviously, welcome for joining us. So we're giving these spells ratings, but the fact of the matter is, some spells are ones that basically belong more in a scroll. It is you're not going to cast a spell every day. It's going to be more of one of these like, hey, you need it and you want to have it in your kind of back pocket, your get out of jail free card. Those go into the scroll case. It's not something that you should look to be memorizing on a day-to-day basis or preparing, or definitely not having it in your repertoire if you're a spontaneous caster. But if you have the money and a little bit of extra time and it's higher up on the list, it's not a bad idea to maybe check out, just grab one scroll of it, keep it in your back pocket just in case. Wands are examples of spells that you're probably going to want to cast once a day, every day, but it's okay if you don't have it immediately ready, like you would with a spell that's in your memory or in your repertoire, because it takes an extra action usually to pull out a wand and stuff like that. So the wand is more for things that, like, you wouldn't mind casting this every day. You could see yourself casting it every day, but not in a rush, not in a hurry. Okay, Detect Alignment. At first I couldn't figure out why this spell was uncommon, and then I realized that it's a divination and, you might ruin a murder mystery if you cast Detect Alignment, and you realize that, like, though there's one member of the town city council that is evil, and you're just immediately like, he did it. Again, the existence of this spell, it's like, wouldn't they just have like a cleric or a bard just, casting this spell on every group of travelers that came in through the city gates? Yeah, Rules Lawyer, we talked about that in our last, we talked about that in our Discord the other day. Exactly. Blasting people with Divine Lance to see if they're good or evil. Listen, we called it the magical TSA. So, I mean, it's no different, right, than them patting you down and scanning your luggage to make sure you're not a threat or a danger to anybody. Brant says, Grim Tendrils is an underperformer. Stay right where it is. I haven't been super impressed with it either. A lot of the spellcasting monsters in Abomination Vault, spoiler alert, very light spoiler alert for Abomination Vault. So a lot of the spellcasting monsters in Abomination Vaults have the occult spell list, and a lot of them have Grim Tendrils. Not really impressed. So your eyes glow, you sense the thing. You just get presence or absence, so it doesn't actually do anything. Someone here is evil. But of course, you can heighten it, and then you can get all the other extra information. Depending on your campaign, this goes in the scroll case or the wand case. If you are playing a game that has a lot of investigation, a lot of interaction with townspeople, a lot of mysteries, a lot of investigating, I think it makes a reasonable case for the wand. Otherwise, I think this belongs in your scroll. As a scroll, I don't think you're ever going to want to take the heightened version of this, though, and like pay the money for that. So you do lose some utility for there. But potentially this has the ability to just like immediately end an adventure because you go, hey, this person is evil, and we know that. So I'm gonna put it in C. Flameloud says D tier, and they refuse to see it as being any higher. All right, well, I'll put it down here, like right on the border of C and D in the scroll. Oh, Sage says D tier. But Swing Ripper says it's fine in C tier. Yes, if you're fighting in a line, Grim Tendrils gets better. Yeah, I mean, guys, this is in the scroll case, right? I think we're battling over here. The key thing about the D is the D basically works, but it like never ever comes up. Detect Evil comes up. Detect Evil comes out. So, and it can be useful. It's a vibe. Yeah, man, you're just checking their vibes. You're just seeing what's up. You're just seeing what they're doing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say about the D. All right, here we go. Moving on. Ill Omen. Nobody clipped that. All right, we got another occult only spell. It's a curse. Okay. It's a divination. It's a misfortune. 30 foot, one creature. Okay, this one is already off to a weird start. 30 foot, one creature, one round, and they have to make a will save. And if they pass the save, they're completely unaffected. So this is the anti-True Strike. The first, basically, but it only lasts for the one round, which kind of makes sense. The next time they make an attack roll or skill check, it must roll twice or use the worst revolt. So you cast it on the monster. You're like, haha, boss. You have to make a will save. Aha, you failed. Your next attack roll essentially has disadvantage. And then the boss monster goes, oh yeah? Well, how about this? And then they spend one action to like demoralize. And yes, I guess technically that does have disadvantage. But then they can attack you with their full attack bonus and not suffer from any sort of misfortune effect. I've said this before, say it again. Whenever you give your enemies a choice, and they can always choose between the lesser of two evils, that always punishes a spell. And the fact that this does nothing on a success is brutal. If this spell was more like, hey, if they succeed, they get a -2 circumstance bonus to their next check. And then if they fail, they get the basically disadvantage. This spell would be a lot better. But it is not that. This spell is bad. And a Flame Loud, it doesn't okay, for starters, it doesn't make them waste an action. They could still attack you or do something with it. So, and that's if they fail the save, and it only lasts for one round. Also, by the way, the kind of monster that you're going to be casting this on is a single target boss. You wouldn't really cast this on any other situation. And the fact that it does nothing on, there you go, Eon Rider, exactly. Given that this does nothing on a success, means it's definitely not for boss fights. Give this man a credit. Yeah, top hat and teacup. D at best, probably, not probably, exactly. It is a D. It's not an F because it is a cool effect. And I love we can all agree that it's very occult. It's very cool to have this opposite, this curse, this misfortune, sort of the anti, the anti-true strike, the anti-divination, the sort of ill omen. That's awesome. Flavor-wise, huge win. But it just doesn't deliver. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, what sucks is they know they fail, yes. Yeah, it's my understanding that you would know that you failed, yes. Yeah, it only lasts for 1 round. It's only their very next check. Flame out of D means it could be useful in some very unique circumstances, but in your run-of-the-mill, day-to-day, it's just not going to come up enough for you to really consider taking it. And even when it does come up, it's not going to be game-breaking. It's not going to change the course of the combat or the encounter that you're involved in. And so that's why it goes into D. Right. Exactly, Swing. You got it. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but no, Ben, I don't think this would be a scroll case, no. Yeah, S tier, the spell is broken, and honestly probably needs to be rebalanced. It's too good, and especially compared to the other things, right? Like, we want to have fun choices, and it is fun to have cool spells in the game, but fundamentally, S tier spells should just be, they're too powerful. F tier spells are broken because they either completely don't work as intended, or the effects are so trivial and meaningless. The fact that you're giving up a limited resource, which hurts even more now in Pathfinder 2, where you're operating with other classes who may not even have limited resources. They could get their treat wounds after combat, use lay on hands or use other focus healing spells, get back up to full, wait 20, 30 minutes, and continue on for the rest of the day. So now you're having to keep your resources caught up with these classes that can go and go and go, like the Energizer Bunny. Wow, I feel old saying that. But Aaron, you said disadvantage shakes out to about -2. My understanding from people who've done 5th edition math is actually disadvantage shakes out to be closer to -5. That was my understanding. Yeah, I mean, that's a fine. But that's a fine change. Quag. But yeah, I think what you would want to do is you'd want to tone down S tier spells. You would want to throw out or completely rebuild F tier spells. You'd want to give D tier spells a big boost or combine them to create more generic effects, and give C tier spells a little bit of love. I'd love to see sort of like that A, B, C spell tier list be the sort of sweet spot of spells. All right. Imprint message. This one is likely to be bad. Oop. It's probably a very, for funsy, narrating, role-playing type spell. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't do the math. Someone else did the math, Aaron. Okay. Imprint message is an occult-only spell. It's touch range, 1 object, 2 actions, and you give it psychic vibes. Then it doesn't do anything at all. Only if someone casts object reading on the target object, replacing any emotional events the item was present for. If the object is in the area of a retrocognition spell, they'll get the imprint. This spell is an F. I think we can all agree that. There we go. And the spell does nothing. And I'm moving on. Liberating command. Thank you. Thank you for that super chat. That's very, very sweet. Yeah, hey, awesome. You should definitely check out the other spell list. I don't know if you've got to head out, Aaron, but I appreciate you chatting with us, and definitely appreciate the super chat. Very, very, very appreciated. We got a Discord. We have a Patreon that lets you in there, and we chat about Pathfinder 2. We run community games, so definitely check us out. And if not, we're going to try to go live here a couple times a month, probably once, maybe twice a week. And, we love the community interaction, especially when people point out things that I made a mistake on. Helps keep me honest. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Spells that need other spells to work deserve an F, no question. Yes. And we have found that if a spell comes from an adventure path, you're going to have a bad time. Leave it in the adventure path and just move on. All right. Liberating Command. Occult only. Ooh. It's from our nemesis, Gods and Magic. This one's had a history of being horrible. 60-foot range. Okay. You give them a liberating cry. And if they are grabbed, immobilized, or restrained, they can use a reaction to attempt to escape. So you are using one action to give someone a reaction, and then they have to make their check to escape, which of course is your unarmed strike roll, or your athletics roll, or your acrobatics roll against the DC of the effect, which is either grabbing you, immobilizing you, or restraining you. This is basically what's yes, this is exactly what the Liberator gets with their reaction. Of course, you also take less damage with that. It is not terrible. That is a cool command, but you are using up a spell slot to do that. 60-foot reaction isn't bad. And of course, if nobody is grabbed, immobilized, or restrained, it doesn't do anything, obviously. Another person saying it's the Liberator reaction, but worse. This is not bad, but it's not good. A D. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards C minus as well. But the fact that we have some people who said D. Self-Confessed Cynic does make a good point. Does it get bonus points because it's one action? I think it does get bonus points because it's one action, right? They have to use their reaction, but depending on the situation, that may not actually be that much of a thing. But basically, they would otherwise have to use an action on their turn to escape. And consider this. As we all know, escaping has the attack trait. And that means that you are giving them essentially 2 chances, because on their turn, at the start of their turn, their multiple attack penalty will reset. So if it was their turn and they tried to escape, now you're giving them a turn on their reaction with no multiple attack penalty. And if they still don't escape, then on their turn, they can try to escape again, but their map will have reset. So I actually am going to go with C. So I think that's okay. Swing Ripper says to avoid the attack trait, then fine. C is acceptable. And I agree with Self-Confessed Cynic. This does remain viable at higher levels. You don't need to scale it. You don't need to heighten it. And 60-foot range means that when you get to higher level and you're sort of on those bigger battlefields, you're still going to have a lot of good range with this and be able to kind of get some good mileage out of it. Hey, so we're in the home stretch here. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us, and I just want to take a quick moment to shout out the patrons who support Knights of the Last Call. We have a variety of tiers from our squires who pay $3 a month just to join the Discord and jam and chat with us and play in our community games, through our knights, into our champions, and all the way up to our hero tiers who help support the channel a ton. They get access to some of our bonus content and videos, but really most of them are doing it just because they support what we do. They like the content that we are making for YouTube and for live streams like this, and they really, really appreciate the the community games that we're running in our Discord, as well as the community that we've created there. So I just want to say thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to 2022, and a lot of that is because of the folks who are part of the Knights of Last Call Patreon, the Knight Nation. All right, moving on. We got Mind Link. Sounds like another weird occult spell. Guess what? It's another weird occult spell. All right. This is a cool spell, right? It's 2 actions, and you give them 10 minutes of information. This is very much a narrative spell, right? What does that even mean? This is very much a cool, mental, magical spell. It has no real mechanical benefit. It is purely for, role-playing and for increasing the fictional or narrative truth of your game using magic. To that end, I have to weight it accordingly. So, unfortunately, yes, Neurolancer, it is the Mind Meld. Very cool. Again, we can all agree that this is very cool. But again, this is a B tier role-playing spell, maybe A. Going back to what we said before, this is the type of thing that I think cool, higher level occultists or whatever should be able to do with the occultism skill check. And someone who is a caster who has occultism goes over, mind melds with someone's head, makes an occult skill check, and rather than just doing recall knowledge with occultism, I want to see those skill checks be used to do cool effects like this. You shouldn't have to take a spell slot to do it. And yes, Kevin, exactly. We talked about this before. This should be a skill feat tied to occultism. And, it should be called Mind Meld. And you know what? Think about it this way. Like if you're trained, right, you can link thoughts. And as an expert in occult, maybe you can, create a minor telepathic bond or at least an empathic bond. And if you get to legendary occult and you make a skill check, maybe you can like impart your katra onto somebody, person like Spock did at the end of Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, and like you like imprint your soul onto someone else's so that if you die, like there's a chance for you to come back. Like that's what we should be doing with these cool magical abilities instead of shoehorning them into awkward spells that don't do anything.
Tipped $20. DM, okay, you are in a tavern. Player, okay, I seduce the barmaid by having tentacles appear from my forehead and shoot beams of terror vomit at her. DM, what player, so do I make a diplomacy check? DM, okay, we are playing 5th edition now.
Yes, Occult has some strange effects that can lead to some pretty anti-heroic. As Brandy the Bard just sort of illustrated there, which is to say that technically if you cast like Fear and Sicken on someone, their will save goes down, so you're much more likely to be able to technically like use diplomacy on them to make an impression while they're vomiting and bleeding from their eyes. It's not very heroic, but yes, I feel like Brandis has entered the chat. Very much so. Brandy the Bard, keeping it real. So yeah, I'm going to have to put this spell into the scroll case F tier. Awesome spell. F. Object reading. Oh, goodness. It's from the APG. It's from another adventure path. Belongs to the Cosmic Caravan. Occult only. 2 actions. You place a hand on an object to learn a piece of information about an emotional event. Not any event. An emotional event that occurred involving the object within the past week as determined by the GM. If you cast object reading on the same item multiple times, you can either concentrate on a single event to get further information or a piece of information about another emotional event within the time frame. And this thing scales all the way up to wish levels. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the super chat. Very, very, very much appreciate you. Appreciate that super chat. Was expecting to see the full-on Davy Jones Cthulhu beard. Yeah, no, not quite. My Photoshop skills are better than my cosplay skills. What can I say? Yeah, Eon, the scroll F was insulting and it was intended. So it was not spiteful F. This one is cool. Yeah, 9th level. Hey, what do you want to do with your 9th level? Well, I was thinking I could reshape reality as we know it. I could think using only the power of my mind to bend time and space and beyond that to 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensions, accessing planes of power that the mortal mind of men cannot possibly ken to know. What are you doing with your ultimate magic? You see that old weathered table over there? I'm going to put my hand on it, and I'm going to learn about one event that really, someone like 100 years ago, they broke up with their girlfriend over this table. It was really sad. That's what I'm doing with my 9th level spell. It should be free. This should be free. Like, if you're this cool, weird, occult witch or sorcerer who has knowledge that they aren't supposed to know, they come into a room. Their eyes are closed. Their fingers are drifting over the objects in the room. They say something cryptic. This place is full of memory and loss. Great loss. And then their hand brushes against an old chair and a flashback of information comes unbidden to their mind. They make an occultum check and they basically get to recall knowledge about a man who sit here and he wrote the letter of his, to his dear friend telling him that, he had committed those horrible crimes. Like, you should just be able to do this. This should not be a spell. But it is a spell, so we have to grade it. Definitely investigation. It's kind of useless outside of it. Ooh. So I'm going to put it into the scroll case. Let's see. It's right up there with Detect Alignment. What was this spell called? Oh. God help us. There we go. All right. Object reading. Tenant C. Brutus says, well, my dungeons will now be littered with 9th level spell scrolls. Yeah, there you go. Yes, hopefully the psychic gives this for free. It is it's a cool spell, but it doesn't quite get there. Ben Bangin, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you. And he agrees. This should be a class feature or a feat. What's so horrible about this? Like, if it's not giving someone a bonus to hit or a penalty to hit, like we don't need it to be a spell slot. Like, resources are a real restriction in this game. They're a real restriction in this game. And as you play on and on and on, you don't want to create, look, we already battle this as a GM, as a player, you battle this. Making decisions between what's cool for your character's story and you wanting to role play them in a way that feels thematic and appropriate, and what's just good, because you're going to be fighting fights, and this isn't Pee Wee League. This is the big times, right? This is Pathfinder 2. This is a brutal game. We all know that. It's a brutal game. You get to a severe encounter or higher, and you have to really play well, and you can't just spam your attacks and spam your stuff, because you get your shit pushed in is what will happen. And so you really need to step it up. And that means that a player who chooses to take these spells over, say, something like Fear or Magic Missile or True Strike is, in a sense, doing their group a great disservice. And I don't want the game to just be about tactical miniature combat, Vin. I want the game to be about exploring your character and exploring the world as well. And I want to give my players more options to do that, not less. So, yep. All right. we are. So I like it as a C. I like it as a C tier scroll. Again, it's not going to like auto solve the day, but it's going to be like detect alignment, where sometimes it's going to be useful, and you're going to get some use out of it. All right, next. Oh, Phantom Pain. Let me tell you a story about Phantom Pain. The first time we played Pathfinder 2, it was all right. Self-confessed cynic, just laughing because I called him out. Self-confessed cynic is Vin. Called him out for his combative ways, and it is very true. I'm sorry, it is true. I like roleplay and combat being together in ways including resource management. There's a strong point to be argued there, and I don't think you're wrong, but I think Pathfinder 2 is not set up as well to do that as some other games. I'll just say that. Yeah, so William Brandis says, you know how they broke Feats apart into class, ancestry, skills? Why don't you do that with spells, right? Some spells can just be for fun and flavor, and other spells could be for, the combat, right? Like your class feats are usually for combat. And I agree with that. All right, so Phantom Pain. So story time. Minor spoiler for Fall of Plaguestone. Minor spoiler. But Pathfinder 2 had just come out. The year was 2019. August, and we just picked up our Pathfinder 2 rulebooks at Gen Con, and I also picked up as the presumptive GM, I picked up a bestiary, and I picked up a GM screen, and I picked up Fall of Plaguestone, and we brought them home from Indianapolis to home base here in Cleveland, Ohio, and within a couple of a week or two, we had gotten together the old group to play some Pathfinder 2, and we played Fall of Plaguestone. So we get to the final confrontation, the final fight, and final villain is not like a strong melee capable character. She's kind of more of an alchemist, a caster, and very quickly within a couple rounds, the fighter had thrown away his weapon so that he could grapple her, ended up critting and restraining her. So had her, and then she got tripped by the monk. So she was prone on the ground, being held down, restrained by this like big burly dwarf, holding her down. And then the occult sorcerer, the aberration blood sorcerer, cast Phantom Pain on her. And she failed. So she was sickened, but she's an alchemist. She really wanted to be able to drink potions. So she was trying to vomit all over the place by retching so that she could clear the Phantom Pain so that she could drink a potion. Meanwhile, she was screaming because of this ongoing persistent mental damage. So the mental image was these brave heroes just holding down this young female elf on the ground, beating her into the ground while she bled from her eyes, screamed in pain, vomited all over herself. It was not the ending that we thought it was going to be. Mechanically, it was the right move, but it definitely left a weird vibe on the session. So I have we got fun times. Sounds like classic Pathfinder. Sounds horrible. Those things could be the same. So heroic. Yeah. Not very heroic at all. What was worse is, again, spoiler, the alchemist sort of has this big alchemical golem bodyguard that's supposed to defend her, but it really can't do anything. So it moved over to the dwarf who was grappling her and restraining her, and it tried to grapple him, and he succeeded. He beat the dwarf's fort save, but he didn't crit, and so the dwarf was immobilized. That's all the grapple did, and the dwarf's like, the dwarf fighter was like, yeah, I don't care. Let him grab me. Let him immobilize me. I'm right where I want to be. I don't want to move anyways. So it was not really great. But let's talk about this spell. It's a damaging spell. This ongoing persistent mental damage can do a lot of damage. Obviously, if they succeed at the save, they're taking a blast of 2d4, and they avoid the persistent. But the fact that they don't take half, no, they take the full initial damage. They only get away scot-free on a crit success. But if they do fail, so worst case scenario, you're blasting them for 2d4 damage, which is about a magic missile, right? 2-action magic missile would be 2d4 plus 2, and this would be 2d4. So that's pretty great, right? If they fail, though, wow. 2d4 initial, 1d4 ongoing persistent, DC 15 flat check to save, and their second one. That can eat up a lot of actions, and it lasts for an entire minute. It's a great spell. I hate to say it. It has the non-lethal trait as well. So for some odd reason, you really need to bring someone in alive. You can do this. It is a good spell. So I like this spell at A. It's very powerful, and it's an ongoing damage debuff. Sicken is very powerful. It eats up actions, and even if it can eat up actions, and they could still fail the retching check, and so that could be really, really interesting as well. It does have the mental trait, so you're not going to be able to use this against, your mindless automatons or swarms of vermin. So that is something to be considered. But I think the spell has enough utility in terms of its damage. D4 persistent mental damage is actually pretty good. I mean, I could really easily see someone taking 4d4, 5d4 damage. I mean, DC 15 is no joke, right? Yeah. And the fact that you do the persistent damage on top of a sicken is pretty brutal. The fact that the sicken ends the persistent means they're going to be really tempted to throw actions at this to try to shake it off, and they might end up wasting 1 or 2 actions. And against an on level or above level monster, if you cast this, do some damage, and then you trade 2 actions for their 2 actions, that's a really great trade. So a lot of things are immune to mental, stops it from being S. Agreed. Yes. A tier. Very not heroic, as we learned. Very, very, very mean looking. Pocket Library. I think we had rated this before. I just don't think I put it on my list. Let's take a look. Yep, we had it in D. Okay. Pocket Library was really cool. Although it's a level 1 spell, somehow it lets you reach through time and space to an interdimensional library, all for a level 1 spell, breaking everything that we know about the way that magic works in this game. And then it gives you a book, which grants you a bonus once. You can heighten it all the way to the level in which you could cast Wish, and then you can reference it a couple times per day. The spell, not very exciting and not very good. All right. Protection. We just talked about this a little bit on the Discord today, but there are a lot of ways in the game.
Wolf tipped $6. Need to head off. Keep up the good work.
We will. Thank you very much for the tip. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for that Aether Wolf. We'll see ya. We'll see you on the Discord, buddy. Thank you. So there are a lot of ways to increase your attack bonus in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You can use the aid action, granting you a +2, +3, +4 bonus at higher levels through circumstance. Heroism scales 1, 2, 3, all the way up. But armor class is really hard to rise. It's really hard to get a high AC. You have protection, which gives you a +1 status bonus, and it goes up to +3 against effects made by summoned creatures of a chosen alignment. It only works against one alignment, typically, evil, if you're being your typical heroic people. But there's not a lot of ways to get status bonuses to armor class. There's a lot of ways to get circumstance bonuses to your armor class. You can parry with the feats that let you parry. You can raise a shield. You can get cover. But it's pretty hard to raise your armor class. And this spell does not heighten. And there is no other spell, I think, until 8th level. And I think it's a divine spell. It's called like Divine Aura. And I think it's a +2. So ACs are pretty tough to come by. So this is about it as far as it goes. It's uncommon. I would love to know why this is uncommon. I'm assuming it's because it references alignment. But is alignment uncommon in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? So if anybody would like to share with me why this spell is uncommon, I would love to know. But I can't figure it out. Interesting. All right, well. Oh, all right, well. Bard Cantrip Inspired Defense. I don't think this spell is great. I don't think this spell is useless. I think this spell is a C. Interesting. So Swing says, uncommon probably due to alignment as a thing that is detected and is written around by a variant rule. Yeah, it's weird, though. It's kind of strange that it's uncommon. Damien says, all the protection and defense spell, and detect spells, rather, became uncommon. Yeah, it's very strange. Now, I understand why they did this. High ACs are pretty, make the game slow, right? They it's like the NBA, it's like the NFL, right? It's like Major League Baseball. They want to encourage scoring, right? So the game feels better, it runs smoother, it flows faster when you and your opponents are all hitting and doing crits. If everybody had IACs and everybody could, stack everything together, you suddenly have higher ACs, your opponents suddenly have higher ACs, and then everybody's just missing. And the combats take, instead of 3 or 4 rounds, the combats take 5 or 6 or 7 rounds. Nobody's critting. You're not doing any sort of fun damage. I think they don't want people to really raise AC. The fact that this effect doesn't get trumped until higher level, though, Eon Rider, I agree. I think it is better than C. I'm going to move it to B. +1 status to AC is just hard to get. And, again, Bard defense, really. Yeah, defense spells, that's very true. I mean, a +1 is a +1, right, at higher level. Yeah, but again, it's single target, it's 2 actions, it's only a +1, but the context of this game, the fact that armor class, because here's the thing too, again, consider the circumstances. I would argue that unless it's going to really change the math, this is not a spell that you would be as interested in casting against a boss, because the boss is only going to be making a couple of attacks around. They might not even be attacking that one person that you cast it at. And the difference, if they're hitting that, if they're hitting your player, or if they're hitting your ally on let's say a 7 or higher, right? Going from a 7 or higher to an 8 or higher is not that much of a difference. But if you cast this on somebody when you're fighting a lot of foes, and you might be receiving 2 or 3 attacks each round, or 4 attacks each round just on you, or just on the person you cast protection on, then over the course of a 2 or 3 or 4 round combat, this might come up 12, 13, 14, 15 times. And those creatures already had a lower chance to hit. So increasing this makes them even much less likely to checks. So, so yeah. I don't know how we missed this, Rules Lawyer. It does give a +1 status bonus to saving throws against creatures and effects of the chosen alignment. Interesting. So hold on a second. No, we will take crit. No, we take crits into account. That does matter. Again, I said before, but like I said before, there's an inflection point. But here's my question. It says +1 status bonus to armor class and saving throws against creatures and effects of the chosen alignment. If I cast protection keyed to evil, and you are hit, and a evil spellcaster casts fireball, do you get the bonus to your saving throw? This makes me think no. It makes me feel like you only get the saving throw bonus if the spell itself is evil, or if it is coming from an evil creature directly, like a mummy or a lich's paralysis or curse. Am I crazy? Does that make any sense? But that seems like that makes some sense to me. Because again, it says saving throws against creatures and effects of the chosen alignment. So the fact that it calls out the effects makes me kind of wonder. All right, Rules Lawyer is saying yes. It says yes and, so it applies to the evil caster's fireball too. All right. Well, then that is better than I thought it was. No spells have their own traits for alignment. I thought they did. I thought like Divine Lance and stuff did. All right. It does go against traps that have the evil trait. Okay. Oh, the Russian bots are coming in hard. Huh. All right. Well, I think it goes up to an A then. Great. That's easy. Easy peasy. Buffed AC and buffs all your saves, and it's a status bonus. Yeah. Yeah, spells could get traits. Yeah, +3 against effects that would directly control the target. And we know how bad and annoying and unfun those things are. So, yeah, pretty good, actually. I'm impressed. Okay. There you go. I learned something as well. I'm learning things all the time. All right, we got a couple more. Let's knock them out. Here we go. Sanctuary. So Sanctuary is a powerful spell, but of course it comes with the big limitation that the person cannot take hostile actions. The creatures, it does something even on a success. Of course, a creature could try to attack them. They have to make a will save each time. And if they, succeed, they can attempt to attack its target and any other attacks against at this turn. And if it fails, it can attack the target and waste the actions, and it cannot attempt further checks against the creature. And it lasts for a minute. And so they have to do this each time that they attack. And that's pretty good. And if they critically fail, that's it. They waste their action attacking, and they can't even try again for the rest of the duration. So that's, that's pretty good. Now, the downside is you cannot use a hostile action. And there's some debate about what is a hostile action, what isn't a hostile action. But if you're just running around buffing and healing and commanding your minions, I would argue that none of those are hostile actions. And so that could be pretty powerful. The fact that it lasts for a minute, and even if the creature succeeds, they still have to make checks in future turns. So it is weird that if someone critically succeeds, the spell just ends entirely. And it's pretty strong, actually. So I kind of like Sanctuary. By the way, we're noticing that trend. Spells that basically were old spells brought into Pathfinder 2 from older versions of the game, from the core rulebook, still holding really strong. I like Sanctuary. I think it's powerful. I think the effect is good. I think eating up actions is really powerful. We're thinking about this against, again, I like to think, because the kind of fights I like are against like 6 or 8 lower level foes. My God, Sanctuary could be brutal in one of those fights. Give you just a ton of time to cast whatever buffs and protection spells you want. Make those lower level creatures just eat up their attacks, failing and just wasting opportunities, maybe even critically failing and just literally just not being able to attack you for the rest of the entire combat. I like it in A. We're pulling in late here with the Divine. Divine's going to be a weird list because I can tell you, or I'm sorry, not Divine, I'm sorry, Occult. It feels like Divine because the last couple of spells I think are spells we would usually think of as being Divine. Protection, Sanctuary, and Soothe. All right. So Soothe is Occult only. It is emotion. It is enchantment. It is healing. It is mental. All right. You target a living creature. They get D10 plus 4 hit points for 2 actions within 30 feet. And they get a +2 status bonus to saves against mental effects for a minute. Soothe is very powerful. So the question is, Heal was S tier. For 2 actions, Heal did D8 plus 8. And that is an average of 12.5 points of healing. Soothe heals for D10 plus 4, which is 9.5 points of healing. So Soothe is about 75% as efficient as Heal. It does not have a 1-action version, nor does it have the 3-action AoE version. Additionally, Soothe obviously cannot be used to harm undead. And it has a not insignificant +2 status bonus to saves against mental effects for 1 minute after you cast that. Now, remember, we did talk about that this is constitutional or constituted to this list. So, this is S for support caster. Soothe is S. Soothe is a poor man's heal, A or B. We don't have a heal spell. Find another healing spell on this list that is nearly this efficient. Now, Swing Gripper, I think, sums it up nicely here. It's S tier. If it was Divine, it would be A tier on there. So for the Occult list, Soothe gets the S. You know, you're not embarrassed to cast this. D10 plus 4 is not nothing. You know, you're giving them +2 status bonus to saving throws for a whole thing. Yeah, Flame Loud, I agree. It's really good. People are just blinded by Heal. I completely agree. Heal is obviously really, really good. And William Brandis, I agree. I mean, when you can have a very, very competitive, heal spell like Soothe and combine it with probably the best debuff spell at level 1, which is Fear, you get, let's finish up real quick. We'll talk about this here real quick. Spirit Link. I don't like this spell. I kind of know what it does, but I don't like it, I think. Here we go. Spirit Link. Divine and Occult. When you cast a spell, if they're below maximum, at the start of each of their turn, you get 2 hit points, and you lose that hit points. And you basically can't do anything about it. So, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I think you'd just rather cast Soothe, right? Yeah, Paul, I was going to talk about that, but I didn't think it really mattered that much. Paul, it doesn't have the positive trait. So if for some odd reason some creature is damaged by positive energy and they're living, you can soothe them. Any first level spell that can raise someone from unconsciousness should be S tier. Yeah, I agree. Right, the name of the game, because remember, we're playing Pathfinder 2. Whether you have 1 hit point or 100 hit points, whether you're at 1% or 100% hit points, you get 3 actions on your turn. You can crit. Your multiple attack penalty is 0, -5, -10. You get all your abilities. You have access to all your spells. If someone goes down, you get nothing. They're huge penalties for being unconscious to all of their defenses, and they don't get any actions. So being able to bring someone up is absolutely huge. If one of your party members is a Dampier, you need Soothe because it is not positive and it is healing. So yeah, this gets readjusted for the tradition. So Spirit Link is okay, but it's not, I don't think why you would cast this as Soothe. So, I think it's like a C. I mean, I guess arguably this could bring someone up each round. What do you guys think? Right? If you cast this on someone at the start of each of your turns, if they're unconscious, they get 2 hit points and are now conscious. Last 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm open to what the chat says. Spirit Link's like a C. C. Yeah. All right. I'll stick with what I said at C. All right. So let's look at the occult list here real quick. Because I think it's interesting here. We have some very powerful buffs and in the form of Sanctuary, Protection, Magic Weapon, which we know is a good spell, and True Strike. But we also have some really powerful debuffs in the form of Fear, which everything gets, of course. But we also get this Phantom's Pain spell, which can sicken someone. And then we get Magic Missile and this Biting Word spell and this Phantom Pain spell, which also does damage. I got to admit, that top tier of Occult, very strong. But it's really missing out in the mids. That B tier is very thin. And, you know, it has a lot of the same problems like Arcane had, where it has just a lot of this really weird crap at the bottom. And William Brandis asked, did Primal get Fear? He doesn't remember. Let's take a look. Yep. Primal got Fear. This is Primal. Self-Confessed Cynic. Occult. A bottom-heavy level 1 list with enough good spells for 95% of Occult casters to easily get by. Yeah, I think so. I think that's good. Deceptively strong variety, even though most of the spells are weak. Damien, I completely agree with this assessment. Made for spontaneous casters. Just because, you know, you have just a small handful of really great spells, and you're going to want to cast them over and over and over again. So, yeah. So, the Occult Tradition is a weird one in general. Yeah, everyone getting Fear makes sense since it's the core strategy of the game. Is just everybody's feared all the time. Frightened. Another reason, dare we say it, that the fighter is so powerful and broken, they get that bravery ability at such a low level. And it just makes them basically so strong against the frightened effect. It's just crazy. All right, well, what do you guys want to do? You guys want to let me know. Do you guys want to do Divine really quick? Looks like we got 3 spells in Divine that we didn't do. We got Disrupting Weapons. Let me bring it up. All right. Soothe the fighter and Fear is useless. All right. Yep. Divine's not good. All right. Divine time. All right. Well, a couple of these. Okay. So right off the bat, the biggest thing you should notice, look how few spells this list has. The Divine list is almost comically small. It is we're in the focus spells here. It is very, very short list. I think there's like 20 or something, maybe like 30 spells. It is very, very short list. Now, to be fair, as we've seen, a lot of those spells in Arcane, you know, Arcane is just massive. But Arcane had Fs all the way to the wand case. So sure, Arcane had a lot of spells, but how many of them were actually, really all that good? So we'll go back. We'll I'll fill these in. And what I'm going to do, actually, everybody, is maybe I'll make something. I'll put it on like a comment or something on the channel. I really need to get a website actually together for us. But what I'll do is I am going to, and maybe I'll do like a short, YouTube short, or just a really quick video. And I'm going to quickly cover the stats, the statistics of our first 4 traditions. And you know what also I'll do? The Elementalist doesn't get any new spells. It's all spells that have already been covered by everything else. And so just for completeness sake, I will take the Elemental Tradition and I will take the tiering that we have from our other lists and I will sort of fill in the gaps so that we have an Elemental tier list. I'll release that as some sort of like spreadsheet so that people can use it. And I'll just do a quick video kind of running down the statistics of it. Sort of what is the bell curve? You know, what percentage of spells do we deem as playable? What percentage of spells do we deem as good? What percentage of spells do we deem as trash? And, you know, just make that available to you guys as a resource so that any of you, you know, folks out there, if you need to use it, it's available to you and you can make it easier than having to watch through all these videos. I mean, you should watch through all these videos because the commentary is just as important, if not more important than the actual grade. But all right. So in terms of new spells, we get Disrupting Weapons, Harm, and Summon Lesser Servitor. Just as a reminder, we're starting with 2 S tier spells here: Fear and Heal. All right, we got Disrupting Weapons. Let's knock this out. If doing a published list, please mark out the spite picks like Mind Link. The spite picks? The spite picks? How is that a spite pick? I mean, thank you, Self-Confessed Cynic, for the super chat, but that is not a spite pick. That spell sucked. Is it cool? Yes. But is it, like, actually useful or powerful? Are we thinking about the same spell here? 10 minutes. You impart in an instant what takes 10 minutes. Do you know how much time, you know how many times a day Pathfinder characters spend 10 minutes at a time? Your characters probably know everybody's life story in the entire frickin' party because you're sitting around. You fight for literally, 20 seconds, and then you sit around for the next 30 minutes to 3 hours while you just kind of wait for blood to congeal. You get a lot of downtime. Mind Link shouldn't even matter. You should just be like, dude, I know everything about you. You can't, there's nothing. Go split the party. Have some new shit happen to you, okay? Then come back and then tell me, okay? Anyways, all right. Here we go. Disrupting Weapons, Divine Only, Necromancy Positive. Target up to 2 weapons, each of which must be wielded by an ally or otherwise unattended. So you get to hit 2 allies' weapons with disrupting energy, and for 1 minute, they do an extra D4 points of positive energy damage to undead, which doesn't seem like a lot, but remember, a lot of undead have weakness to positive. So this could be D4 plus 5. This could be D4 plus 10. Obviously, it is completely useless if you are not fighting undead. But when you are fighting undead, this spell is very, very, very powerful. So, with that in mind, where's it go? Well, if you don't fight undead, the spell is useless. If you do fight undead, the spell is really good. If you know you're going to be fighting against undead, you would take the spell, and I think you'd be very happy with it. It might even be S tier. On the other hand, if you're just hanging out in Absalom, probably not going to get a lot of use out of it. Does that mean it should go in the scroll case? Yeah, probably. So I'm going to say Disrupting Weapons, B tier in the scroll case. It gets the B over the C, okay? Because it does target 2 weapons. That's pretty sweet. And it heightens at a pretty decent, reasonable level. And obviously, if you know you're going to fight against undead, you're going to prep this spell, right? But some of these spells, they're obviously, you don't care what the grade is. If you know that your next encounter is going to be that you're going to be having to put out a bunch of flaming buildings, then you're going to take that stupid personal rain cloud spell, even though you should never actually take it. Brutus the Cat says scroll A. Brutus the Cat, I like your style. I like scroll A too. I think in the right situation, boom, you get it all. And clerics, divine casters do know all the spells. Obviously, sorcerers don't, but very good. And of course, a cleric, can really get that value. It's so weird for me to think of divine sorcerers, so I don't even really think about it. But when you do need it, it's excellent. And it's a great way for people to do extra damage, including against incorporeal creatures, which normally otherwise would take a lot less damage. Harm. Okay. I have a funny harm story. When we first started playing Abomination Vaults, again, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. When we first started playing Abomination Vaults, there are, as I mentioned before, a lot of enemy evil kind of casters. And particularly, I think on level 3. Real quick, Aeon Rider says, this is the kind of spell that shows the benefit of prepared versus spontaneous. And I think you're absolutely right. Okay. I knew what heal did, so I assumed I knew what harm did. And I played harm. All these enemy casters had this. And I had them doing 2 action. They were casting like level 2 and level 3 harms. 2 actions, 2d8 plus 16, 3d8 plus 24. Will save for half. Oh, I'm sorry. Fort save for half. Yeah. No, this spell does not do that. Obviously, it heals. It heals undead for that amount of money, amount of damage. But it does not do that much if you use it for damaging. Just 1d8 negative. So 1d8, 2d8, 3d8. Here's the deal. So Swing Ripper's got it right. My version of the spell, S++++. It's a weird spell because, okay, I'll go back to this example. Again, I'm sorry, spoiler alert. These are the ghouls of level 3 of the Abomination Vaults, and they're all undead. So even after my ridiculous version, they can just 3 action, AoE the party. Everybody's taking D8 or 2d8 or 3d8. They're all getting healed for 2d8, 3d8. It's insane, right? But as you, a PC casting this, you are unlikely to be in that same scenario. If you cast this spell as a 3 action, you are going to be harming your allies as much as you are hurting your enemies. And for that reason, I just don't think the spell has a lot of, a lot of value. Yeah, S tier for sure when you're a ghoul. So if you're undead and your party's undead, S tier. Because now you are doing... It's the same way when you fight undead and your cleric, who is positive energy, is casting 3 action heals and is healing everybody in the party for like 15 points of damage and dealing... So it's like, oh, I healed 60 or 75 points of damage and then I dealt 60 or 75 points of damage. Like, that's insane, right? It's probably, at that point, literally the best possible spell in the game. But I just can't get behind it. So I'm going to have to put it into C tier. With the caveat that if you are undead and your party's all undead, S+++++. Yeah, there you go. New books coming out. Book of the Dead. Metagame the shit out of that. Everybody is a Dhampir, half vampire Dhampir. Nice to do 3 harms with Cleric font against an enemy. Map doesn't apply. That is true. The 1 action does not apply as an attack because it's a saving throw. So that is very cool. This is, Rules Lawyer actually brings up a really interesting point. It's a problem. I know we only have one spell left, but I'll try to get through this rant really quickly. It is a problem that Aeon Rider says Divine doesn't have that much direct damage. Does that mean it's B? It's reasonable. I hear what you're saying, and it sounds reasonable. Now, granted, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is, Pathfinder 1, like if you were a neutral cleric, if you were a good cleric, you couldn't take inflict light wounds. You could only take cure light wounds. Selective energy feat, says Rubicon. Thank you, Rubicon. So you have to take a feat just to be able to use both sides of the spell? Ugh, come on. Come on. That's horrible. Yeah, for a huge AoE that also hurts your allies. I'll up it to B just because it is what the Rules Lawyer brought up was pretty good. And I want to talk about this what he is describing here in case. This is a problem I have with spellcasters as foes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They are built more or less the same as PCs, which is to say that if you are going up against, if you're a 10th level party and you go up against a 10th level foe and it's a 10th level caster and you basically look at the book and use the GMG rules or whatever, they are going to be more or less around the same as a 10th level caster, which would mean if they're like a spontaneous caster, they would have 5th level spells and lower, and they would have 4 slots of 5th level, 4 slots of 4th level, etc., etc. And in my spoiler alert, which I talked about before, ghouls, they were 5th level casters, and they had three slots of level 3 and 4 slots, and they had their divine fonts or whatever. Those foes have no tomorrow. You know that as a GM, they know that as a creature, and they aren't balanced because no PC goes into a fight and just goes, I'm going to burn my highest level spell slots each round, and then I'm going to burn my next highest spell slots each round until I'm done. But that is how NPC casters cast. And, so in this example, which Rules Lawyer is talking about here, do 3 harms to the cleric against enemy map doesn't apply. So let's say that it's a party and they're fighting, it's a level 10 party, and there's a bunch of monsters, and one of them's like a level 9, 10 cleric, and they have 3 or 4 level 5 slots. They're going to go up and go, 1 action harm with their 5th level slot, 1 action harm with their 5th level slot, 1 action harm with their 5th level slot. And you're going to do a ton of damage, absolutely. But like no person would ever really play that way. Like, what's the flip side of that? Do you, as a GM, I joke about this all the time, you go up against the end of the campaign's high level, and it's like level 16, and you're fighting this like level 18, 19, level 20 Lich, and you get in there, and you're like all prepared because you're expecting to get, Wail of the Banshee and Power Word Kill and all these other brutal spells, and you get in there, and the Lich is just like, oh, no, more heroes. And you're like, oh, you're going to die, Lich. And then you start fighting him, and Lich rolls obscene on his initiative because, of course, he's got a really high perception. And then he just starts electric arcing you. And you're like, wait, what's going on? He's like, you're like my 5th party that's tried to kill me today. I'm just tapped out. All I have left is Mind Link and a bunch of roleplay spells. All I got left offensively is just electric arc. So 10d4, buddy, coming your way. Zap, zap. Because I got nothing left. Like, no one ever plays their monsters like that. No one ever plays their foes like that. I mean, I think it'd be hilarious. But yeah, so that's my rant about doing that. Let's take a look at the chat's up. Rules Lawyer says in his Ruby Phoenix campaign, if the PC's encounter a spell cast late in the day, he rolled a random percentage to see if the enemy caster had already cast a given spell. That sounds cool. I just don't know why that's not in the game. And also, how much does that affect the rating? I mean, a high-level caster down a couple of their highest level spell slots, my guess is a level, maybe 2 levels weaker than they're supposed to be. I don't know what balance went into determining this. And in a game as balance-focused as Pathfinder 2, you would think that they would have more guidelines around that. So. William Brandis says, It would be cool if there was a game that was called 4th edition D&D. Yes. Flames of the Ruby Phoenix is interesting because it's a competition, and you definitely know that they are fighting and doing things. So, all right, our last one is a summon spell. You guys know how I feel about summon spells. This one, I'm going to guess, is no different. You summon a celestial or fiend whose level is -1 to fight on your behalf, and it scales up. All right. So, doesn't really do anything super different than any of the other summoning spells. So, I'm going to say that this is a C. You feel like I underappreciated the summon spells. Maybe. I think spending 3 actions, then being locked into a sustain, the nerfs that they gave to the summons, their limitations as minions per their minion rules, their inability to take more than 2 actions, is kind of brutal. And I understand that it gives your caster a way to essentially get 4 actions by sustaining once. And I'm not saying they're D's or F's. I'm just saying I do think that they underperform. Lee says, does it get D because it doesn't even get better? Yeah. I mean, again, I'm assuming, I'm looking at this from the point of view of the cleric, right? But this is even worse than some of the other ones that we've seen. I agree. Didn't even scale. Top Hat, I agree. It all comes down. Okay, and we didn't even talk about this. The other reason I don't like summon spells, it's just a lot of book work. Like, if you look at some of these other spell lists, like Summon Fey, Summon Plant or Fungi, Animate Dead, like, it's dozens and dozens of monsters. And it's like, as the GM, like, do you want your, like, so what are your players supposed to do? Are they supposed to read through the bestiary and know what every single monster does? If I have access to 3 or 4 summon spells, does that mean I get to know the stat line of every single one of those monsters? Now I'm flipping open the bestiary. I've already got an entirely complex character sheet. Now I have to flip open the bestiary and run this other complex character, but I can't even just use it out of the book because some of its abilities are removed. It just doesn't play well at the table. Summoning didn't work in Pathfinder 1 either because my wizard summons D4 plus 2 Celestial Dire Lions, and now I'm taking 7 actions a turn. So, yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a C spell. You should take it, and it will do things. I just don't think it is. I just don't think it's worth the hassle, and I don't think it's really, really good to be worth all that extra work. Yeah, easy utility sheets are good, and I always encourage people to have, stat lines and things, but I just feel like summoning takes it to a whole other level. Right. If everybody's playing online, I don't, if you know the nights, you know that we get together in our studio, we sit around a table. Like, I don't want people nose deep into laptops and tablets. I want them focused on the table. I don't want them looking at a screen. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. Obviously, there's a lot of people who have to play on VTTs. In fact, we are going to be playing on VTTs here for the next, couple of weeks, or at least the next month or two, because of COVID. So, that makes those spells a lot easier when you just have the stat line on like a secondary monitor or something. There's a lot of flavor in summoning. Absolutely. Haha, I'm creating this cool being to go and fight for me. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And they did bring it much back in line, right? And they had to. Like, summoning, we said this before in all of our other streams, summoning is one of the ones that took the biggest, what took the biggest. And so, it's one of those things that really unfortunately had to get penalized because it was being abused by some players, and it just ate up too much time at the table. And for that reason alone, they had to hit it pretty hard with the Nerf bat. When's the next episode? Great question. I don't know. What's today? Tuesday? Well, maybe Thursday. I don't know. We'll see how we're feeling. I can tell you that this weekend, we are going to be filming probably some new episodes. I think we're going to be doing some reviews of some recent Pathfinder 2 releases. Very cool. We did a review of Monsters and Myth, which was pretty controversial. Check it out on our channel. We're also going to probably record another episode of our podcast. If you haven't given that check out yet. That's my dog growling. Hey. Anyways. Oh, Joseph. Yeah, Joseph, we just did Divine. There was only 3 new Divine spells, Joseph. Okay. Yeah. So Joseph, when's the next episode of the Knights of Last Call AP? All right. So today, Bob and Tim and everybody just bought new equipment to sort of upgrade their home setup. They are not going to have the kind of setup we have at the studio, of course. But we are going to be playing Rise of the Runelords live. I think we are going to be doing it on Tuesdays. I think we're going to try to do some dress rehearsals here this week. My guess is we may do a kickoff episode the 25th. If everything gets in line, we'll do it the 18th. But my guess is it'll be the 25th. And we are going to pick up where we left off with the group right in the middle of the Hook Mountain Massacre, on their way up to the Storval Deep to deal with the Stonebreaker Trolls and the Krieg Clan Ogres that are there mining and demolitioning the dam, trying to bring it down. But it's going to be live, and it's going to be on live stream. We're going to have probably some interesting technical challenges. We're going to be using Foundry. We have a fully maxed out Foundry server that is available for use for our patron members, for our community games that I think we have about half a dozen community games that currently run. They're open to anybody in the Patreon. And so we have like a Foundry Forge server with maximum capacity, maximum bandwidth. I think we have 3 or 4 Foundry licenses on that Forge server. So we can actually run 4 games simultaneously. But again, don't thank me. Thank the patrons. They literally paid for it because, well, they use it more than I do. So, but we're going to get there. So yeah, that's the plan with the AP. And I apologize for the delay in it. The Knights, most of the guys in the Knights, family guys, they've got wives and kids. Holidays was really rough, and COVID has just been crazy for everybody. And I know that I'm sure it's been crazy for you as well. So, thank you, Ben. Very, very, very appreciative of Ben. Ben is a huge member of our Discord community. He's a true friend of the show. Makes a lot of our custom music for some of our shows. If you've listened to our podcast, if you've listened to the Night School, you've listened to Ben's work. So thank you for my hard work. Listen, it's hard work too, Ben. I'm trying to work up this audio for you, buddy. Yeah, we're busy. We're trying to get it out here. Honestly, props to these people who can get out. Like, look, it's a joke. It's, we make fun of it on the channel, No Nat, he just films on his iPhone or whatever like that, like on his couch in front of his calendar. Here's the thing though, that kid puts out content, and I have to really just salute him, because it's tough. It's tough to get out 2 or 3 videos a week. It's tough to get out. Sometimes it feels like it's tough to get out 1 video a week. So I really respect anybody who's really putting out that huge amount of content. YouTube is like no joke. It really is a lot of work. And you're always like wondering if this video is going to bomb. And then when you do put a lot of work into a video and you release it and you only get like, it's only like your 7 out of 10 out of your last 10 releases. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like what did I do wrong? Was it a bad thumbnail? Was it a bad title? Did people were just people not interested in the topic? Are they just not interested in me? Do they hate the, so it's tough. I really respect anybody who's putting a lot of work and effort into these, into their channels. It's really tough. And, the Pathfinder 2 community is not a big one. So, but that being said, we are not technically a Pathfinder 2 channel. Yes, we talk about Pathfinder 2 a lot. Yes, all of our live streams have been about that. Thank you, Steve. The rules lawyer, another person who puts in a lot of work in. And you're tipping me. All right, well, I'll take it. Yeah, rules lawyer is great. He comments on a lot of our videos. We've had some great back and forth on it. We have some members in our Patreon community who are part of his community as well. So I definitely encourage you to go check him out. He's going super deep on his most recent series, where he is just making these awesome mega battle royales and really digging into it. And there you go. Yeah, Swing Ripper wrote the summary post of casters versus marshals, and that was a really cool concept and event. And I think it's great. And his growth has actually been really, really great. So I will say, if you're looking to get into the YouTube RPG space, look, like the Critical Role route is not the way to go. APs are really a lot of work. They're long videos. You have to plan in advance. You have to get a whole group together, and the views are not there. Critical Role, it gets all the views, and then there's like no left for anybody else. Maybe Glass Cannon Podcast gets a tons too. And so, when we started this channel, we were playing Pathfinder 2. And so it just made sense that we were going to talk about Pathfinder 2 because we were playing Pathfinder 2. So I am not beholden to Pathfinder 2. My Pathfinder 2 section is only like 1.5 segments on this bookshelf back here. So I really do like a lot of other games, and I'd like to talk about it. Yeah, Bernardo, how it's played is also incredible. He's like the professor. He's going to break it down for you step by step by step. He's got some really great, solid examples in his stuff, and he's really good. We love Deadly D8. There's just a lot of talented people, but it's a small community, right? We understand that. Pathfinder 2 is not as big as 5th edition. It's never going to be as big as 5th edition. I think it's foolish to assume that it would be. Yes, Swing Ripper, I did actually read through that. I thought it was really good conclusions that you were able to draw from that. I thought that was actually really interesting. Yeah, and here's the thing. I think learning about other role-playing games can only help you with the games that you do play. I think this myopic view that people have, this, are you 5th edition or are you Pathfinder 2? And then you've got people now in Pathfinder 2 who are being just as stubborn and just as obstinate as the people who only quote unquote play 5th edition. There are a lot of games out there, folks, and support your fellow content creators. You don't have to buy a hardback book. Buy it on, Drive Through RPG or throw down some money on a Kickstarter. I've enjoyed being a part of this community for, many, many years. William Brandis says the only true game is Monster Hearts. Listen, I love Monster Hearts. It's actually my favorite role-playing game. That is true. It's not the only true game. That would be being very dogmatic, but that's great. You should totally steal clocks from Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is amazing. John Harper is an incredible game designer. If you want to be blown away and pay no money for it, when this show ends, or right now in your Google, type in Lady Blackbird. If you need to, type in Lady Blackbird RPG. It is a 10, 15 maybe tops page RPG all in one. It's a one shot. It's all the rules are on one piece of paper. It's incredible. I've run it 10 different times. I've played in it 10 different times at many different Gen Cons, each time completely different. It includes so many cool RPG concepts from his 1-7 design studio. And, you know, John Harper knows how to make some games. I'm not calling Vin out like that. Vin called Vin out like that by saying Vin, again, self-confessed cynic, huge pillar of our Patreon community, really responsible for managing our community games section there. Just a huge soldier. He basically says, I like to pick the game that has the best RPG combat elements that I enjoy, and then I just modify and change it to fit every game, thing that I need. And that's fine too. The games can be whatever you want them to be. So, yeah. And to be honest with you, Swing Ripper, and I know you're a member of our Patreon, so it's awesome. The future state of me running games, which, I've gotten comments before, I've gotten DMs, and people said, hey, do you run games? And I'd like to run with you. I like your GMing style. Some people don't even care. I literally got hit up today by some complete random stranger who had no idea that I run a Pathfinder 2 channel. And he said, hey, I really like Star Wars. Will you run it for me? Just literally a random message out of the blue on Discord. Got my name from from Foundry or something. Very strange, just to ask somebody. So people are very desperate for GMs. But I would see myself as probably running non-Pathfinder 2, non-5th edition games in sort of a 1, 2, 3, sort of a many shot or a dual shot type way, rather than like running a full campaign. Because again, my goal with this channel, my goal with these live streams, it's to educate. Okay. Thank you, Vin. Know what you love and own it. Yeah. And that's why Monster Hearts will always be my number one. Ever since I played a teenage vampire in love, it hasn't been the same. Yes. Damien's going to be running Star Trek Adventures, which is awesome, right? The new 2D20 system. We have Call of Cthulhu games going on there. We had BX, old school games. We have Pathfinder 2 games as well, of course. But, I want to create a community that's about education, about growth, about discovery. I think RPG is so much more than just the game that you play. It's a hobby. It's a lifestyle. And I definitely want to encourage that. So, yeah, Top Hat, I agree. I've played a lot of them. Small micro RPGs, I think, are a lot of fun. Lasers and Feelings. I think that's another John Harper one. Yeah, I think it is. World of Dungeons, which is a hack of a hack. It's a hack of Dungeon World, which is a hack of Apocalypse World. Bernardo, Lady Blackbird RPG. Matt Colville is great. I would love to do a live stream or a video just talking about Matt's most recent video that he did about understanding the interaction between RPGs, player engagement, and the reward structure of that RPG, and how those three things are intrinsically tied to one another, and in fact, kind of determine the game that you're playing. And I thought that was a brilliant video. I don't always agree with 100% of what he says. His narrative focus and his storytelling and his sort of author background comes out too much, and I think he fudges the game a little bit too much for my liking. But with some other things, he's really spotted the money. And he loves 4th edition, and I love 4th edition too. The DM's Lair is a new one. I just subscribed to him last week, and he does a bunch of live streams too. So I've been trying to catch up with his stuff. He's pretty great. Sly Furish, Mike Shea. I met him, probably almost 15 years ago, when 4th edition was big, and he was really big in the 4th edition scene. That's when he became out. We ran a couple of games, or he ran a couple of games at Gen Con that I got to play with him with, and I've always really, really enjoyed his stuff. How to Be a Lazy GM is a book that I have honestly never read. Sorry, Mike. But that style that he talks about was something that he has talked about many times whenever we chatted at Gen Con, and I completely buy into that style. So, all really good. Professor DM is great. his approach with the universal dungeon terrain and that sort of here, there, over there, kind of abstract but still using minis concept really, really spoke to me. Just the way he presented it, the way he uses it to run his games, took a huge amount from that. Really love that. We all love 4th edition, don't we, though? Thank you, Atomic Hobo. Late to the stream, plug for the Patreon. The Discord does not disappoint. Thank you. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you very much for the kind words to the Patreon. We really appreciate you, and I've been happy to see you you being more active there recently, and I'd like to hopefully see you playing some more. Do I know the Dungeon Coach? The Dungeon Couch? He does. Dungeon Coach. Yeah, Dungeon Coach produces content. So he's like almost a publishing house, really. He has a ton of patrons, and he makes a monthly e-zine, which, you know, he's got a crew of people working on that, and that's a ton of work. And he does make a lot of homebrew content for 5th edition. I think it's easier to do that for 5th edition than it is to do that for a game like Pathfinder 2, at least to make it good. No offense to 5th edition or people who make 5th edition content, but balance doesn't really matter. I mean, sure, you can all tell when something's like actually completely broken, but for the most part, right? Like, it's flat math. Like, you're not expected to have a certain, you know, of this or that at a certain level. Like, Pathfinder 2 is so tightly balanced. Think about how much work Paizo puts into making a class before releasing it. You know, the Thaumaturge, the Psychic, the Gunslinger, the Summoner, and all the changes and all the playtest feedback they do. Now try to imagine doing that on your own. It's actually really, really intimidating, really, really challenging. I have some ideas about ways that we could expand the Pathfinder 2 content, and I think in a way that wouldn't break the game. As to whether or not we would ever produce that and make that part of our, you know, Patreon offering, I don't know. It'd be cool, but it's a big commitment, and I think it's a lot harder to do with a game like Pathfinder 2 than it is with a game like 5th edition. I like GMing 4th edition. I dislike playing 4th edition. You know what? I could almost understand that. I mean, I'm kind of like, I like GMing anyways better than playing, but GMing 4th edition is beautiful. It's so smooth. The prep is so easy. Running the monster stat blocks after playing any edition of the game, especially 3rd, especially 5th, especially Pathfinder 1st, especially Pathfinder 2nd. When you play a 4th edition monster and you're running it and you just see this like stat block and it's just all right there for you, and yet the monster is still cool and has awesome powers and abilities and traits that are going to make it stand out and feel unique in a way that like 1st edition and 2nd edition monsters didn't, you're like, wow, this game's amazing to run. A lot of Matt Colville style isn't for me, but I like his stuff. Yeah, I own his first, the strongholds and keeps and all that other stuff. Again, not really, when I bought him, I wasn't even really playing 5th edition, but, you know, I think he has some interesting ideas, and he really likes Dune. I really like Dune. He really likes the Dune board game. I really like the Dune board game. I love people pay you to sponsor you. I don't exactly know what that means, but I don't know. We haven't gotten any sponsors. Thank you, Swing. Appreciate it. I know you're brand new, but I love that you've been in there, gaining levels, and making an impact, and I like to see that. So, yeah, that checks out. I mean, that must mean you really took some time and really thought about it, maybe balanced it, did some QA, because 5 hours is a lot for a 5th edition class. Because let's be clear, there's not even a whole lot of meat. If you want to make a Pathfinder 2 class, you have to make all those. You have to make 11 levels of class features. You have to make 11 levels of class feats, and that might be 3 or 4 or 5 feats per class tier feat. Oh my gosh, you're making 50 plus feats just to make a class in Pathfinder 2. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, you could make Pathfinder 2 content willy-nilly. I think it could really break your game, and I think you'd see that really, really quick. I don't know. Playing a 4th edition Warlord was probably like my favorite D&D character ever. The Warlord was awesome. It's probably like the single coolest class from 4th edition. People have tried to replicate it, and it doesn't come close because there's nothing. The 4th edition mechanics embrace the way that warlord character class works so well. It's really hard to do in any other class, but man, in that one, it worked. All right, I'm going to clear out the rest of this chat here. Yeah, Rules Lawyer has Discord. I've been in it. Check it out. It's awesome. The Knights Discord tends to push a little older. We're mostly in our 30s or 40s. You know, we have a couple of folks in there in their 50s. We have a couple of folks in their 20s, but we tend to be more, well, around the age of the Knights, right? And we're all in our mid to late 30s. And so that tends to be the sort of the age demographic in our community. So if that's your style, if that's your pace, maybe consider throwing us a couple bucks and come join us. Chef, I probably missed you, but if you catch us on the VOD, see ya. A lot of people have complained about the execution. Some people complain about the execution about 2D20 games in general. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's true. We have some loyal and dedicated fans. Bernardo, you hit it the nail right on the head. So downstairs, this is like my office. In what basically is my dining room, I have an entire wall with board games. I have like 200 board games, and it's almost a badge of pride that if you meet someone and you go, oh, I only play Catan, I only play Carcassonne, I only play Seven Wonders, and people look at you like you're weird. You're like, what? No, like sometimes you want to play a Euro game, sometimes you want to play an Ameritrash game, sometimes you want to play a train game, sometimes you want to play a pick up and deliver game, sometimes you want to play a point salad game, sometimes you want to play a drafting game. Right? There's different games, different board games to fit different moods. And then even within those different categories of board games, you have different themes and genres. Well, the same thing is true for RPGs. Obviously, RPGs require a little bit more commitment than a single instance of a board game. But that doesn't mean you can't play 3 or 4 or 5 episodes of sort of a mini campaign. I'd love to really start pushing more on like 6 to 10 session type campaigns instead of just planning these 50, 60, 70 plus session campaigns that just take nowadays, it seems like years to complete. So Damien coming in with the clutch that Poppets still suck. I got to admit, I had like a moment today. We are reading the Absalom book. Surprise. We are, thank you, Damien, by the way. I appreciate the sentiment as much as I appreciate the couple bucks. We're prepping to review the Absalom book, and we're reading it. And there's a section, someone linked it while we were going through it. There's like a underground criminal gang of leshies, and they're called like, it's like a spoof of the Brady Bunch. It's just so lame. It's so lame. I just hate leshies and I hate poppets. And again, those are fine concepts. It's part of the mystique of fantasy. But when you're playing a game where you're like, look at my cute chibi leshy, and then you're like, then like the next turn you're like, and here's my pick, and it has the fatal trait, and I'm gonna crit fish by smashing this into someone's head. It's a stylistic difference. But again, I'm not a big fan of anime, and maybe that's why I don't get it, right? Like, isn't that a big thing of anime? Like, oh, look at this, person. Like, he's just a ordinary kid, or, it's just like a little schoolgirl, but she's capable of destroying mountains and, breaking through hundreds of enemies. And for some odd reason, that's very appealing, but it's just not to me. The older I get, the more I enjoy one-shots. One-shots, I don't enjoy as much. I enjoy them at a convention because that's almost by definition what they have to be. And there are some there are some systems like Dread is a good one. Dread's a horror game that uses a Jenga tower. And you pull Jenga blocks out, and if the Jenga tower falls, your character dies. It's really tense. It's great for a one-shot. But most game systems that are designed to be played over many sessions, doing a one-shot always leaves me feeling a little empty. I like the concept of character progression. I like gaining
new abilities, whether it's because I'm leveling up or because the game has a system for leveling or improving your character as you play. One shot's not enough room to breathe. 6 to 9 sessions feels like a good TTRPG experience. Yes, I very much agree. In fact, I've played 13th Age RPG a couple of times now. It's a sort of a mix of 3rd edition and 4th edition. So if you like Pathfinder 1 and you're curious about 4th edition, go check out 13th Age. And they have a campaign model in there. 13th Age only goes to 10th level, so it's 1 to 10. But their 10th level is like super high powered, right? Like when we think of 20th level, that's 10th level in their game. Anyways, there's a model in there where you play 10 sessions. You play 10 sessions, and at the end of every session, you level up to the next level. So session 1, you're level 1. Session 2, you're level 2. Session 5, you're level 5. Session 10, you're level 10. You fight the big bad evil guy or whatever. Campaign complete. It's awesome. So, yeah, no, I mean, they're okay. Some of them are weird and scary, and I don't know. I grew up, you know, this is my copy of The Hobbit, you know, that I've had since I was a kid. I think this is like the 1981. So this came out the year before I was born. So, you know, like I grew up with, this was fantasy for me. So it's a little weird for me to think of just leaf people. I get it, you know. Yeah, I agree, Atomic Hobo. This is definitely those are all great for 6 to 10 session campaigns. 13th Age, Mutants and Masterminds, Blades in the Dark, perfect because, you know, and I love what Paizo's doing. We're really excited. I'm excited. I've gone on record. I'm not a big AP fan. I love emergent games where I go, I have no idea what this campaign's about or where we're going to go or what we're going to do. I'm going to throw some interesting scenarios, some interesting situations, some interesting NPCs at the party, and I'm going to see what they do, and I'm going to react accordingly, and I'm going to just week to week just kind of wing it / think about where where they've pushed the ball in this direction. Let's follow it. All that being said, I really enjoyed the Abomination Vaults, and I'm really excited for this new Quest of the Frozen Flames adventure path, which comes out this month. It may already be out, the first episode, and we've talked about maybe trying to get a second live stream going just to play that. 1 to 10 for me is way more appealing than 11 to 20. I like that lower power fantasy level. And when you get to like level 8, 9, 10, and you start getting like the really powerful spells, especially like level 11, which is kind of like that high end where you get like Raise Dead and Teleport, right? Like that to me is like, that's where what we consider to be like heroes should end, because you're not like a hero anymore when you can teleport and raise the dead. You're like a demigod. You're like a superhero. That's some Superman shit. And which is fine. I like reading about Superman. I even like some of the movies, not the recent ones, but that's not what I want out of my D20 based fantasy game, because it's really taking it further and further and further away from this. And that's what I don't like that as much. All right. Well, we went about an hour over, so thank you for sticking with me. But it looks like we finally made it through all the chat. So maybe we will be back. Now here's the good news. Level 1 was rough. A lot of spells. There's less spells at level 2. There's less spells at level 3. There's less spells at level 4. I think we can all agree that this method worked really well, because we were able to kind of do the arcane. And then, as we did the other schools, there was less and less to do because we had already covered some of them. So I think we're going to keep with that. I think we're going to keep that, well, I don't even know what to call it, that methodology going. So just want to say good night to everybody who stuck with us, who's still here. Ben, Atomic, Bernardo, Brutus, Damien, Jarrett, you've just been lurking, but hey, buddy. Joseph, Rubicon, everybody here in the chat, just want to say hello. And I want to say, I hope you have a wonderful week, and hopefully you'll be seeing more from us from the rest of the nights soon. They're getting their streaming gear set up as we speak. Top Hat, love it. Swing Gripper, I know you were here before we even went live. Thank you. And special thanks to the Russian bots. I'm hoping that they are getting a lot of great Pathfinder 2 information. I hope they are making some good use out of all this spell ranking. So yeah, just want to say thank you to everybody for sticking with us. And we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.